All right, everybody. Zoning Bylaw Review Steering Committee, January 7th at 7:08 p.m. I don't think I've introduced that at previous meetings, but probably should have.
The first.
You know. So this meeting tonight, we've gone over the draft amendments, or what the proposed draft amendments would be for this Springtown meeting that we'd like to bring forward. Everything's been reviewed by everybody a few times, but I just want to kind of have one last check of this. And then briefly, after we've kind of gone through that and made any sort of final edits, just kind of talk about what I guess I would be anticipating and what everyone else anticipates for our next phase. Obviously, this checks the box for a few different sections, but you know, some of the more complicated stuff is going to probably be following up after this. So I think it might be easier just to go into sections 1 through 4 and 7 first. Just any final questions or concerns. So starting with section 1, general provisions. And then this one seemed to be probably the least controversial in terms of changes that we talked about, but anyone has any thoughts on that?
I just had a question.
Yep.
Why was that continuation of prior provisions? Why was that the one that referred to like 1925?
Oh, why was it removed?
Yeah. Is it just like too old or covered somewhere else? Or?
I believe it was removed because so referring to 1925 was when the first zoning was written in Walpole.
Okay.
The first zoning in 1925 was actually a building code book.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird. It's called zoning, but it tells you how to build a house.
Ah, okay.
The reason I believe that Caroline said she wanted removed was the case law goes on 1926 and 1956 through Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So if anybody appeals us on anything, again, this is a local date.
Yeah.
So if you denied me my right, I'll appeal under the statute of 1956 or 26.
Okay.
We won't appeal under this because the state law would overrule that. So I think
Okay.
she took that out.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up the zoning diagnostic because it's probably...
Okay, yeah, I remember
Shorter version of
something,
that.
okay,
Yes, it's
that
kind of one of
makes
those dates
sense.
we have set.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. Yeah, but other than that, I think, you know, good changes. It's clearer.
Yep.
Yeah. So I have no other
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, I think the underlying theme really of all these is kind of when there's language that is the same as 48,
Redundant.
just
and-
reference 48 rather than restate it.
So Patrick, so she has reviewed this again. Does she have any other changes than the ones we made, or she was pretty good with the?
So her edits are as 11/26. I think that was after when was our meeting in November.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So yeah, everything here is reflective of both
we've already
whatever
seen those.
what we've seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing new
Yeah.
since our last meeting
Yeah.
is in this one. Some of the ones that do have her comments, I think I left the comments on, and I printed them out for you,
Yeah.
so you should be able to see those. Just to kind of, let me just bring it up. So, to answer Sarah's question, which is the same thing that Jim said, but her reason for getting rid of this provision is unnecessary and appears to be a holdover from before the new zoning act, which was enacted in 1976. I recommend deletion.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
why. All right.
Question, which one was it? Five. I know some things changed from a 2/3 vote to just a majority vote, but I don't think everything changed.
No, it didn't. So that's why instead of referencing by favorable 2/3 vote, it would just read vote of town meeting consistent with the provisions of general law chapter 48. So rather than state the exact
Okay,
reasons,
so that's,
yeah,
that last sentence, okay.
because you're right, there's just a few things, it's not everything.
Makes sense.
All right, good to move on to section 2. All right, so this is one question I want to have resolved with everybody. I have 2 copies specifically because when I initially did this, I did the whole remove and replace, and then we talked about before and what it be more transparent, just to have the underline and strike through. So, kind of first question to you on this one, does anyone have a preference on which version, strike through or remove and replace?
I prefer the strike through.
Strike through.
Yeah.
Okay. Easy
I know
said.
sometimes it's a lot, but it's,
No, I agree.
Clearly
Clearly
shows
shows
what was
what-
put in.
yeah.
what was-
So you're not like,
Yeah,
wait,
yeah,
is that
what-
there?
what it was.
This looks okay, but what did it say before, and
Yeah.
what are we giving up for something maybe?
No, I absolutely agree, just wanna touch base on that. This one, I do believe, no, I don't think I have any comments from Carolyn on this one either, that were talked about previously, but,
Yeah, I think we didn't change it much since the first or second draft, I think it's stayed
pretty much as is.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just had a question about, like the bond or the surety. And do we feel comfortable that it has appropriate language to give the town what it needs?
What section exactly is that?
So, like, it used to be, section 2, special permits, number 4.
Okay.
I think it talked about, at least I wrote it
Oh,
next
yeah.
to it. Is it there? That's where I wrote it, let me see, is it somewhere else? But then it's added in somewhere, it's just, so, where did it add?
No, but I know what you're saying, so what the former 2.24
Yeah,
is the notice of public hearings shall be conducted in accordance with general law 48, section 11, but the language itself, language before that was much more specific to what the actual language in section 11 was. I'm just looking at it now to see where it mentions surety.
so I did find it, so where did it say? So we have something in there about bond, but it seemed very,
Within section.
oh, conditions of approval may include, so this is under B, findings and decision, B2.
B2.
So it says may include a requirement for the posting of a performance security to ensure compliance with the terms and conditions. I don't know, I felt like that was very
So
casual.
2 points.
Two B, two.
2.2B.
I'm sorry.
B2, so this,
No, three
so
B
B2.
two.
Yeah.
3B2.
Yeah, so you're on the top of the next.
Top of
page.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jump on the top of the
Yeah.
Top of the next
Conditions
page.
approving. Yeah, that's being included.
Right, so,
That's not being removed.
yeah, yes, it's not being removed. Oh, here, yeah, so where I had said, so boards may require a bond or other security for compliance.
In terms of the special permit.
Yeah, I guess it's the same, I don't know.
Where was it in the original?
So it's under the former 3 special permits to, A4, the second paragraph.
Was it in section 2 originally?
Oh, I see it now.
Second
Sorry.
Notice,
page.
Yeah,
the
so
second paragraph.
second page, last paragraph. So if you
Yeah.
flip to the back, it's the start, it's the last paragraph.
The paragraph starts, where in the opinion of the board, special permit may be granted, may impose appropriate conditions and safeguards. I guess I just want to make sure that it's clear, like, that a bond may be required, and do we need to provide any guidance on how that's calculated, or what's that about, or?
Well, usually surety bonds come from, say, if it's a road or a subdivision, car will give.
Right, car-
It's a moving
Car-
target.
Yeah.
Right, but do we need to
Right,
say any more about like how it's calculated or when it would be
But I'm not
needed?
sure if this is
or-
the appropriate place.
necessarily-
It's gonna
Yes.
vary depending on the
It
project.
depends on what's coming in front of you and to what extent. So if it was a subdivision coming in front of you and we put in that you need to give us a bond, but if I'm doing the subdivision and then I say, oh, I'm making the road private, I'm gonna get a HOA and make it private, then I don't need any bonds because it's
not
my
gonna
road,
be-
it's not
yeah.
gonna be a public road.
Right.
So it's kind of a neat, it is, I get
So,
what you're saying, but it's.
Good example, so, Union Square Village, that was technically, it's an HOA, it's gonna be a private development. That was a special permit for the use, and then it went through site plan review. It's not a public road, it doesn't go through a subdivision process of regular bonding.
Yeah,
But there is a surety that's out with it, that's with the Board of Selectmen, am I correct with that?
Well, no, that's for Burns, or Brook Lane.
That's what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
Union
so,
Square Village,
so,
yeah.
well, yeah, so the part that's in
The
Brook
town.
Village is from the property line in, it's a
Yeah.
private road, so there's no bond or a surety.
Yeah,
But the part that's on Brook Lane isn't a surety because he dug up our road.
true.
So we need a bond for that.
But that is with the board, the
Select
select
board,
board,
yeah.
because they are the, commissioners of roads.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be reflective of the zoning board or the
Yeah.
planning board.
So it all depends too, like what area, but is it going to be through GR site plan or is it going through a subdivision control? So I think Caroline's just trying to clean it up. But
so
because it
we're okay
depends.
with the language and
I
if
think
it's
so,
strong
only
enough and it
because-
gives us what we need
I'm
to
trying to
ask
think of
for
an
the bond
instance-
if we need it.
Well, I'm trying to think of an instance of where you would ask for a bond in relation to in relation to a public, in relation to a special permit.
So it depends, again, it depends on what, like, so that's why.
Depends what the special permit's for, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the special permits, again, because it mixes between, I'm gonna say it mixes between zoning board and planning board, because say if you
Yeah.
want highway business,
Mhm.
and it's a clean new site,
Yeah.
so take the car barn that's going in, that only went in front of the planning board,
Mhm.
because they said it for, the water area,
Yep.
and the new building and site plan, but if that building was already there,
Mhm.
and they go to add on to it, then you go to the zoning board for the water relief, in that being in area one, so it all depends which board it is.
No, of course,
And
but
so it,
the language specific to, a surety.
yeah,
So the board may require a bond or other security for compliance with the terms of its authorization. That's the part, I think, where Sarah's bringing up, is that something we want to lose? And I just don't know where it would be
Sure.
applicable with a special permit.
I keep it in because bonds will fall under both boards. It's kind of a catch-all.
I don't think it's related though to the special permit is what I'm saying. I mean, if it's a,
Special permit, I'm trying to think which one will trigger it.
So I
Well,
think,
what about like Bristol, where they agreed to do the
What wording was in the
sidewalk?
first, in the current?
Did the
Yes,
town ask
that's
for
it,
that?
yeah.
And that
I still
was,
can't
Or through a
find
40B
anything
like
related to that in the
Gilmore's, we have a
current
bond for
bylaw.
them to do or the roads or that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
like
think
that.
we should take it out. I just
Board of Appeals. and
wanted to
special
make sure
permits.
that
There's nothing
it's
in here
strong
that covers
enough
all.
for it,
Yeah.
that it covers what we need to
under,
cover.
so you're
So-
looking at.
seems like you're not trying to make something
Section
up at the end, so
2.2.
you need something there, like, I don't even like the word may,
There's
I
no-
mean,
Yeah, section two,
it's either you can do it or you
special
can't, and then what are the guidelines
It'd be
that
number
are gonna make you?
4.
There is no-
Well, there's no number
Allow
4,
you
right?
to,
It's-
do the bond, right? Now, Jim,
Last
wouldn't
paragraph
they need a
of
bond for,
section
like, say, the
2.2.
drainage on site? They had to have a detention basin or something to make sure that it's all built properly? I mean, even though it's on the private property, I know you're saying the road, but what about the other work that's in there?
Well, so that's it. So say if a developer walked away without
There's
doing a
nothing in
retention
there about-
basin, he's not getting certificate of occupancy from us. So he's never gonna be allowed to get into the house. The house is gonna sit there derelict. And if someone buys the development, then they'll finish it. But when it comes to like a subdivision road, you'll get a lot of people, like legality wise, because our favourite developer has done it and he set precedent against
Oh, okay.
Westwood is, if you're doing a subdivision, years ago people would hold the last house in a temp till he fixes everything.
Okay.
State law has said, no, you can't do that, you have them. So the bonds are on that side is on, if it's a subdivision to that degree, you can sell all your houses, have them as the owners, and then not put a top coat on the road and walk away. Which we had one instance in this town prior to we getting here probably 8-9 years ago. We kept the surety bond to finish that road because the developer got his money, he was like, I'm out of town, and left.
So
So
do we need to spell out any more, like to protect the town, like
No, I think
what,
this one's
Both
what
of
we
them say
need?
nay.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem to be different. The only thing different seems to be that this says to ensure compliance with the terms and conditions of the special permit.
Yeah.
The original language said that the board may require a bond or other security for compliance with the terms of its authorization. That seems to be the only change and
But
difference.
it's
in
under
language.
special
It's under
permit,
special
right?
permit,
So
so
I think
it's
it's still,
compliance with the terms of the
So-
special permit.
Yeah, so it sounds all right to me, but.
okay, I just
yeah,
I just
no,
wanted
it's
to
a
make
good-
sure
it's a
that,
good
you
point.
know, just to avoid something in the future saying,
No,
oh,
maybe-
well, it doesn't say that, so I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do it.
But it's within the new section, or it's within finding its decision now, we're saying. So it is
So-
kind of covered at
It's okay.
these levels.
Okay.
And the
Yeah,
may
but
to
it's
shall
under in granting
is
a
fine,
special
because if
permit.
you put in shall
Is it-
impose, then it's saying that you should put
What was
conditions
that?
that you might have conditions to go on it.
Right.
So the may is like, again,
If
it
you- if
varies.
it's
like-
needed, yeah.
Yeah, because like, again, if
Okay.
you're looking at a house, if you have a small house, and then you have a mansion, they're the same principal thing, but
Right.
you could be doing something different if it were, again, if you, to your point to plumbers inspectors, if you needed a pump to get it up the hill, and where my house is up on top of the hill, I don't need the pump, I've got gravity fed.
Right.
You can't say, well, you shall impose these conditions, because again, it's so, each lot's different, each project's different. So I think she's just more like, again, she's cleaning it up more legality wise.
Okay,
Because they're both under special
Yeah.
permit.
right,
Yeah, they're
That
both,
hasn't
one
It
is,
covers both boards, yeah.
yeah,
okay.
this is
But
just
the
for,
planning board, the zoning board has the power to,
Add conditions,
force the bond if they needed it, right?
yeah, if it triggers
So-
that, the
I
justification
mean,
on the
because if it
bond.
said may, then I was thinking that the applicant may have, recourse and saying, well,
Yeah.
where does it say that I have to have that, so,
Yeah.
But that was the language
But
before.
what are the guidelines,
The language before said may.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
But not
that may
everything was
require
good
a
before,
bond.
but,
Yeah.
yeah.
because you could be crossing over an easement as well. So you could be starting a project that the road's not ready for, and you might have access to the lot, so you could be coming over someone else's property, and they would put a bond in or agreement in that
Right.
I'd have to return this land to where it was before
Yeah.
we done the building. So that's a way of protecting the people there too. So again, it varies, but I think we're covered on that one.
Okay,
I would say.
okay, yeah, I'm good.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I think you referenced to it's the Bristol Brothers as a good example in terms of a project that's massive, you wouldn't wanna let them
Yeah.
leave that half built, so that makes a lot more sense then. Okay. So John, did you kind of follow that, so we moved that to just the findings and decision?
Yeah.
Good on two?
I think good.
We're on three?
We're going to 3. So this one, Jim, this is your area, I guess I would say, in terms of enforcement. Nothing big here. I did have a comment. She had a comment on, it's the very last page, when I guess you flip over the one sheet at the end. Non-criminal disposition process should remain in place. My question was, is the language we have fine, or do you want us not to remove the previous 4-3B? She said the language is fine as is with B as shown. I'm really not sure what she means by that, but I think I think what we have is fine. I think we're saying we have the non-criminal disposition process in place, I would think. Do you not have that, Jen?
Section 4 review, section 4 review, 7.
Just a one page.
Are they fine? Yeah. So it was on the flip it over at the end, penalty. What your interpretation of that was?
Yeah, no, that's fine, because the penalty is actually, the fine of 300 actually comes from our general bylaws.
Yeah.
So we have that, so as long as the general bylaws don't change, that's fine. Because that's where like, some up to $400 or $300 for each.
Yeah.
Some things are down to $250, and that comes from our general bylaws.
Okay.
So that's where, and it also lists who can enforce it, if it's police, health, fire, so it gives us that way. So all our violations come for variances and special permits, come directly from our general bylaws. So I'm fine with that on it.
Yeah.
I can,
So you're fine with that language strike through being removed and then current language? think that's, wait a minute.
You know, of all the stuff we cross out, with all the explanations that, Carolyn said that, it's all state law anyways.
Yeah.
We're just explaining it. But I look at it now and it seems like you're gonna need an encyclopedia, a room full of encyclopedias on
To
Mass
find the
General
state
laws.
law.
Show
You're
where-
gonna be flicking
Yeah.
through everything. It's a,
Yeah.
But all
I mean,
this-
I can see why they did it, because it must have saved a lot of time,
Yeah.
At least give you an idea what direction you're going in, but with all of this stuff, I mean, it's like,
No, it's
So
going
we
back.
would
and
have
then
to
you look up, I don't know, but when I
We
looked
would
at
have to
stuff up.
explain why all this is coming out, and,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
But I looked at stuff up online and stuff, and it's hard to find the exact thing you want, like
Yeah.
it's 64 GL, I mean, there's like, how many spaces in there that you need
Yeah.
to find it, in a different category, so it's, but anyways.
So I have a comment question. So under the responsibility A, B, C, D, it seems like they're all like framed in the negative,
which one
Like-
is it?
like under responsibility. So the building inspector is going to withhold something, or a lot may not be used. And then the compliance, whatever. Can we add something in that sentence above to saying like the positive? So the building enforcement officer shall be responsible for issuing building permits, certificate of occupancy, whatever, and then explain when that might be withheld?
Not really, because
Because
it's enforcement.
It's enforcement.
It's literally what we enforce. So it's
I
kind
think
of,
there's his assumption that something's wrong, because
Yeah.
he's enforcing something.
yeah, there is something, this section 3 doesn't come in unless you've been caught doing something illegal or something wrong. So
Okay,
again, that's because trust me, we were dealing with one this week where we stopped the job and they were like going, oh, my friend told me we're all good. And they were almost, it was lucky we came because they're almost at the end, we'd be like, you'd be ripping the whole building apart.
oh wow.
So that's the thing is, it's enforcement, it's not nice, but sometimes you do have to.
But we don't wanna say like like in a positive way, like
That's
what
not
you're.
what this section
No,
is
it's
about,
not.
that's
Well,
not what this
okay.
section
This
is
is
about.
kind
It's not.
of,
It's all about, you've been bad,
Yeah.
this is what we're gonna do to you.
yeah, because again, the state side of it is, trust me, we've gone through where it's a long process, some that's completely doing something illegally. You're actually better off, and I tell people this, just to a small extent, you're better off being wrong than being right in this state. Because you'll get away with more being wrong than you will with being right. You do the thing right, you'll get probably in more trouble than you will doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But the courts protect you so well.
Yeah,
So that's why enforcement is, because people can fight enforcement. And like, being honest, we're dealing with one case right now, we're 3.5 years in. And it meets every criteria, and the courts keep giving extensions because they want to be nice. Sometimes you can't, because it's not just, again, the enforcement side of it that we do, which people don't really, the CEOs being the bad people to a degree, which doesn't bother me one bit, but usually when we're brought in for enforcement, it's to the detriment of the neighbourhood. It's not just one individual we're picking on. You've done something that's either, because again, as I tell people, they're like, you're taking it personal, and I'm going, no, I deal with houses. Because anybody here, you could be doing something wrong. I could say, I went to your house and say, yeah, you're illegal, we're shutting you down. You go, yeah, but I live here, I know it's wrong, I'm fine with it. I'm going, that's fine. But if Ed came in tomorrow and offered you $6 million for your home,
yeah,
he's going to have footprints on his back because you'll be gone with the check running.
yeah,
And I'm still stuck with the structure, and now I hit him with the violation.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing we do with Mass General Law, and which some cases good, some cases bad, is if you buy a new house that was done 100% illegal, you get my violations. Even though Ed done it and took all the money and left, I'm not allowed to go back after Ed. It's up
Yeah.
to you to go back after him. All my violations go to owner of record.
yeah.
So that sometimes that's why it seems bad, but we do help people, but
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I get
why-
that, like, the first thing that the A is crossed out, so the building inspector shall execute the provisions of this bylaw except where otherwise provided, and in doing so shall have the powers, like, that is out. So that's what I'm saying, like, we don't wanna add something saying, like, this is what the building inspector
I don't
has the
think in this
power
section,
to.
I mean, when I explain to guys all the time, I said, look, I don't make up the rules, I just make sure everybody abides by them.
Yeah,
That's the- it's
Okay,
kind
and
of
that's what we do. And like, Jim, who's the builder from Rhode Island? That guy is awful. Is it Premier or Patriot or something? I mean, we have
Don't
five.
answer that.
I'm just saying.
I don't think I've met him, thank God.
No, he's in trouble in Rhode Island, but we have 5 houses in Norwood that, 2 of them, he got permits, but not for the whole job. And then he ended up selling the house without getting any finals of the COs. So, I mean, Gary's really going after him now, but like, if, for instance, one of the houses that he's trying to finish now, they took like permits for the kitchen, okay? Well, the plumber goes in and does the kitchen, the electrician does the kitchen, then he has his laborers doing the work in the rest of the house. Well, the electrical inspector went in, the kitchen was okay, then he checks the rest of the house. They never put the smoke detectors back in, okay, they took them out. They used, nothing was grounded in the other rooms. So, and then they had too many 220 circuits on it, so he had to upgrade the service to a 200. So the thing is,
Yeah.
you know, they're selling the house, they're doing this house to flip, and the thing is, you buy it, you're stuck with it.
Right,
You know,
yeah,
and the
I
thing
I
is,
don't have an
that's what
issue
all
with
this
that,
stuff-
I just,
Well, so some of the things too, so if you look at section A that's crossed out,
yeah,
you probably see, I say so there, midway down it says no building inspector shall issue no building permit until the
Right.
town clerk has certified that the 20-day appeal period is lapsed.
right,
That's actually wrong. So I can issue, so that there is that area, so that's why I think Karen has taken that too.
yeah,
That might have been back in the day good, but right now, if you get the 20-day appeal period, you can still come to me and ask me for a permit at risk. And you can start the work banking that nobody would appeal in 20 days.
yeah,
And then in 20 days, you have to refile a new permit.
mhm,
But it gets you moving, so someone in the winter time will say, I want to get the foundation before the ground freezes, and the appeal period isn't up, you're going forward at risk.
yeah,
And if someone does appeal, then it's all held up. So I think taking some of it out too is because it does go against, well, probably back in the day it was right, but now today's laws and zoning, it's actually not right, it's wrong.
And this is the conundrum between having it spelled out so it's easy to see in front of you, and then having to go back and look at state law. Because we're dealing with that, I mean, just the example like the ADU, that changes, you know, a lot of changes have happened frequently with the state, and we have to continuously go back and amend to reflect the new language of the state. But having it just reference the law, at least kind of covers you, I would say. It might be kind of cumbersome to go back and forth between them, but it's all the same language throughout the state of Massachusetts, so it's, you know, at least it's consistent with everywhere else.
Yeah, this, section 3 is the nice guy portion of the bylaw.
You're
Like
you're
I said,
already saying on
it's
section
enforcement.
A, we talked about.
I'm just saying,
yeah,
like,
it's a sub-
it's, like, I don't think, like, we should have what the building inspector, you know, has the responsibility and power to do, but I wonder,
But that's not.
why not add, like,
That's not a zoning issue really, though. It's a
no, but
building-
add in that the building inspector is responsible for issuing permits, occupancy.
But
what-
I don't know if that's really zoning, that's what he is.
Yeah,
That's
so
what he does. He doesn't
I
even
get,
state
my
it as
job
such.
is, where it gets mixed up is, I am the building inspector, but I'm also the zoning officer, and I do Mass General Law as well to a degree.
Yeah.
So it mixes through, so that's why, just give an example, where zoning and building cross over. If you built something onto your house, and you never got a permit, never got inspected, you got it for 10 years. No one realised you'd done, and someone could file a complaint, says, all right, I'm sick of Sarah, I'm filing a complaint. I went out there and investigated, and you had pictures, or I can look at the wiring, and it shows that you've had that space for 10 years. Zoning wise, under section 6 says you get to keep it, I can never take it away from you. But building code wise says never inspected, I'll make you rip the whole thing out.
Wow.
So it's a mixture of both, so that's why I think she's trying to get off of some parts of it, that this is the zoning part, so we're
Okay.
called the building inspector,
Okay,
but it's the zoning side of it.
I see, okay, that's fine.
Because I can do, so when I send out my violations, I have to send 2 separate letters, one that states, well, 3 of us doing it right, it depends on the thing. One that's a general bylaw, one that's a zoning, and one that's a building permit. And I have to
Okay.
send those 3 separate letters, because I put them all into one. You just go to court and appeal me, and you win, because I violate, because I can't mix them together.
I see,
Because they're each different one. Zoning,
okay,
you're going to zoning board, and then you're going to land court and then appeals court. Building code, you're going to the BBRS. And then general bylaws, you're coming again, you're going straight to either select board or you could be going to court. So it all depends which you could break all three and you'll have to appeal to all three. So it all depends.
I see, okay.
My son looked at a house and was looking at a house, and I went out and I took boys from the office over, and
Yeah.
we all found some stuff wrong with it, but there was like 2 bathrooms done without permits. There was a bedroom down in the basement, didn't have the egress, the big enough window and stuff like that. And he was excited about the house, but I said, Mark, you have to walk away from this. I said, because you buy it, you're gonna be responsible for
Yeah.
everything. And, next time the assessor comes in, when you own it, you're gonna own it.
Yeah. And that's the kind of catch you got to watch too, is especially the new the electric code got really stringent, because everybody's done it, and every time I've been in, and every state has done it, all over the state, is say if you finish your basement off, there was always ways around it, that if someone bought the house, you go, okay, we'll work with you, we'll check the wiring out and make sure it's good. Back in 2 years ago, October, the electrical code said if the electrical inspector didn't see the wiring going in or can't see the wiring, it all comes out, or he loses his license if he issues a permit. So now it's got to the stage where if you have a basement, the electrical code says it's all coming out even before the building code gets to it. And that could be on a new owner, thinking they got a lovely basement and all good, and you're like, you're ripping the whole thing apart. Because again, that's the problem, is and the sections it cites, all these violations go to owner of record. So it can get tricky.
So the owner needs to be really diligent, because they may be, be very ignorant of what the zoning code is and
Yeah.
what the
You'd be
contractor's
surprised,
doing.
especially now that people want homes,
Yeah.
people are buying them instantly without doing their due diligence.
Yeah.
And they find out the hard way sometimes. They come in and want to finish off my basement, we're like, it's never been finished. They want to change out the bathroom, we're like, it was never there. Now you're digging up a concrete floor, the whole basement, so, yeah, people are, again,
And inspection is in the homeowner's
Perfect.
benefit, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's is their benefit to make sure everything is
yeah,
inspected.
but even at that, you get a homeowner's inspection, like, no offense, you can get a homeowner's inspection tomorrow for $100 if you want to become a homeowner inspector.
Yeah.
You don't need any qualifications. It's just something the bank want to make it look good, because I had to get one for my house. I tortured that poor guy. But
I
they
imagine.
don't have the legality to say if they can check the plumbing. If they say, oh, the plumbing's not up to code, they'll say that to the homeowners. And oh, it's not up to code. Like, whose code? It might have been code 10 years ago, so it is code. It
Yeah.
might be today's code. We get that a lot from
Yeah.
homeowners going, the egress is not up to code, the deck isn't up to code. It is 20 years ago,
Right,
and the law protects them. But a home inspector is just going because it sounds good, and he
Yeah.
has to fill up a form.
right. Okay.
All right,
Yeah, I think we're
so,
good.
section 4? So same thing, there was 2 versions, one underlined, one not. I'm gonna go obviously with the underlined one, so let's get the other one.
Why did we get rid of the line in 1A, about the most restrictive to least restrictive? Unless it's covered somewhat else in here.
Shall divide into 2 classes, zoning districts, residential, public, and commercial districts. Least restricted to this. Oh, this is in reference to the split boundary.
Okay, it goes back to here, okay.
I believe the intent, Jimmy, let me know if I'm wrong, but I believe the intention is, it's going from those are least, the purpose of these bylaws is to represent fit those that are least restricted to the purpose. Oh, so it's going most restrictive to least restrictive, so rural is the most restrictive, industrial, least restrictive. So we, I don't know what you think, Jim, but we could bring some of that back.
I think she took it out thinking outside, but, because I know we have the split zones further on.
Yeah.
So I think this just said this districts were going from the, it was stating it was just going from the the most restrictive to the least restrictive.
And we took out the split boundary lots, the 4.5.
We've got rid of
It's
4.5.
no longer in that section.
Well, it's built into 4.4.
It got-
Yeah, 4.4H.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's probably why, because it's got nothing to do with this section, right?
yeah.
True, but do we need to reference
And then you would need to
4.4H
reference
now?
it for it, yeah.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at it just to make sure to where boundary line is. You could argue you probably,
Because that speaks of the more restrictive zoning district, the
Yeah.
4.4H.
you could
So
change.
something that identifies it as what is the more restrictive thing is probably useful.
Yeah.
You're right, and change it from 4.5 to 4.4H.
That might be the easiest solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what do you think, Jim?
Mhm.
Does that make sense? So if we want to still be able to kind of stay what is, because that 4.4H does go over where district boundary line divides a lot laid out and duly recorded prior to the effective date of establishment of such district boundary. The regulations applying to the more restrictive zoning district may be considered extended not more than 50 feet of the portion of the lot of the least restrictive zoning district. So yeah, I think that probably should be added back and be referenced as 4.4H, so you can interpret what is
Yeah.
most restrictive to least restrictive. You follow?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
Because that won't change, right? The restrictive, the less restrictive.
No,
That's not gonna change, so. it only
But
has to
it doesn't
relate to
really
us.
help you if a residential borders a commercial.
Well, the commercial would be, I
You want to
guess,
bring
least
You assume
restrictive
commercial is assumed to be less restrictive than
than residential.
residential by,
Yeah.
For setback, so you go with the residential
Yeah.
setback,
Okay.
which would be the better point, because if you're going from commercial to residential, the odds of being another residential home beside it, you want to keep as far away as you from your can. If you're going the opposite way, you're building residential, going into commercial, you know you're building up against a factory. No one's going to complain, you're the only person going to complain about you're getting closer to the factory. But the factory coming closer to, because your neighbour decided to sell his house and the factory bought it, the fact you have a bigger setback, at least would be beneficial.
So you're adding that back, Patrick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we
Because
should.
If you didn't add it back, you actually would need to put a comma after zoning districts. Otherwise, residential / public and commercial districts is kind of just floating there.
Yeah, I think it was taken, the only reason I think she would have taken it out, Caroline would have taken it out was, is that just telling you, this just says the districts are residential to commercial, so you have residential to commercial. The old one just listed it as in order of most restrictive, so it's kind of repeating itself. But the bit at the end of the 4.45 or TH,
Yeah,
that part would be for split boundaries.
yeah, which we're now, instead of
So,
having
yeah.
it be its own section, it's now part of.
You could, if you wanted to, because obviously it says residential to commercial are listed below, and you could just put in, you can word it better than I will, but you could put in are listed below, and for split boundary lots, see section 4H.
Yeah, but I guess, would we need to have language in there and identifying what's considered more restrictive?
Well,
Rather
in
than-
it has it in 4H.
It doesn't in
it
terms of,
references which is more restrictive, but it doesn't, there's a listing of which is more restrictive.
yeah, it doesn't say
So
there,
identifying this is more restrictive
Restrictive.
than this is needed somewhere.
yeah, like it doesn't specifically say like residential is more restrictive. It,
Okay, yeah.
you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine, no, I'd be seeing that because I'm just looking for I'll just know which one it is.
Yeah, but I mean, I
That
guess
makes
that's
sense. Yeah.
someone arguing, it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Okay, yeah,
I
no,
wanna
no,
have
I have no
a-
problem with that, that's fine.
chemical plant at my house, why is that?
So you're putting it back in the 4.
Yeah, I think, and I
Yeah.
could send it to Carolyn too, just to say like, notice this, and if that's something we wanna,
Stick it back here, yeah.
kinda wanna go over that split boundary lot bylaw one more time with everybody as well. Just cause I'm not totally sure I like it.
Our boundary lines are odd too, because it's one of those things,
Oh, I have a,
it doesn't make it clear if you see a split boundary, there's no clear setback for it, so it's a grey area. It's very hard for a civil engineer to find out.
Identify where the boundary.
Yeah,
line
it's
is.
very, I've had two residential, I think the last one was the A1, and he only got lucky because when the houses had an old plot plan that showed it.
Well, see, this is I talked to Carl about this, just because this just goes back to section 4.4, where it talked about that language referencing a figure on a
Yeah.
map. That's because, zoning maps, when they used to be done, done with, pen and ink, they would have a reference, it'd be like, 200 feet from the center line, or from the edge of road
Yeah.
outward, that's
Yeah.
that's what the
That's
general
figure.
business is.
Yeah,
But we don't have that on our zoning map anymore.
no,
It hasn't been, so even though, I don't know what
Well,
the intention was at the time, but now that it's digital, which I think,
I don't know if our zoning map is the same one that assessors use, or.
zoning maps,
Yeah.
same one online, it's.
For years,
Yeah,
the assessors map showed my house on
Yeah.
the neighbor's lot.
show your house on your neighbor's lot.
Yeah,
oh, that's the.
Oh, that's GI,
That's GI, no,
yeah.
that's,
So that's the state,
yeah,
they do
that's
like
state,
a,
that's whenever they feel
they
like.
finally
changing.
got it.
yeah,
Yeah. No, we've had lots that, the neighbours have bought pieces of that lot, and if you go with that vision, it looks like it doesn't exist. Like, we found one where a gentleman was building,
yeah.
and it was changed in 1977, the system was never updated on the parcel, so it looked like it was someone else's land.
You go,
So that's not that one that Dennis used, that's just more just give you an idea.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
just-
an,
if you wanna go to Mass GIS data layers, that's where it's all downloadable data from the state in terms of
Yeah.
like GIS shapefile
delineates a
information.
lot of,
So you can go, they do have a viewer called Oliver, you can go in there and you can check out all those layers. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, all that, like, building data, they just do a flyby and they
Yeah.
have basically a camera that's able to take a picture, but it's usually, you can never get it really accurate unless they got better software.
On that same page here, there's one little thing, if we can fix it. In the overlay districts area,
Yep,
the description kind of carries over to the next line, but it's in the same column as all the letter codes. You see there's the word district in the middle there?
oh, yeah,
If we can bump that over,
Yeah, no, I will. I think that might have to do with, you know how you have this gray column right here? Because it's in, it's in
because
the
it's
track changes
narrowed.
mode. Yeah,
Okay.
but I'll make sure
Okay,
it's over though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's confusing, suddenly, okay, district.
Yep.
Are we changing something now? These bottoms we don't need the same as the top three?
nope, I'll make sure that's fixed.
And I see you outline, you crossed out the headings, but it's kind of self-explanatory, so it's probably.
The headings as in, yeah, because I,
Residential and commercial, yeah, because it's spelled out, that these are residential.
yeah, I mean
These are all
technically,
commercial,
if
so I
we're
don't
going
think
by
it's-
underlined, I added them back, but I just centered them so they were more visible. So like where it's
commercial district.
commercial
Oh, I
district
see it
up top, so it's, yeah.
Oh, okay, right there, I missed it.
I mean, that was just my thought. I know we talked about like
Yeah, fine.
symbol and title was just floating and kind of
Yeah.
random.
So we want to keep it saying symbol, not like code or abbreviation?
Something might be better than symbol, I agree, I'm not sure what.
District
Yeah,
abbreviation.
we did talk about that a couple
Yeah.
of times now.
I mean,
Code might be as good as anything, actually, I guess, because that, when we speak about them in meetings and everything, you talk RA, RB, whatever.
yeah.
It's something that the departments know about anyways.
No, I know.
It's not a big deal, but.
No, but you're right,
I
it's
would
not.
say whatever,
We
is there a
did talk about
customary
it.
way that you would
Abbreviation.
talk about it?
Honestly, no, when they come in, we just say zoning district,
Don't just.
and whatever zone you're in.
Yeah, but people talk about, like John said, people talk about the GR, or they talk about,
Yeah, you say
You know,
GR
RA.
district, RA district.
Yeah.
But Sarah's right, it's not a symbol per se, it's not a
Yeah.
shape, or it's not a
you
Should
know,
it be
sign
name?
or something. Huh?
Should it be name?
Well, it's not a name, really, it's an abbreviation, but so code might work as well as anything.
I mean, if anything, could get rid of.
Although we use it as a name, we say the
Yeah.
R district.
Well,
Right.
but we have title right next to it, so
Yeah.
title is really name.
Yeah.
I think it'd be confusing if we say name and then title.
I mean, I think it works from the standpoint of it's two, simple words, symbol and title. But I do think like if you want to be more accurate, it's like zoning abbreviation and then
Yeah.
zoning district,
Zoning abbreviation.
title.
Get the lengthy.
you know, it might be a little lengthy, but I don't know.
There's some easier way,
Yeah.
where
Immaterial.
spelling out
This is the only place
12
where it is
letters,
too, right?
Yeah.
three-letter
Yeah, that word
abbreviation.
symbol.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know.
Well,
Abbreviation
it's a
is
symbol
better,
using the map, right?
I think, but
Yeah.
it's
Abbreviation could work.
not a hill I'm gonna die on, so it's fine.
yeah,
It's a symbol of using the map.
yeah, it's a symbol
No,
when
it's
it's on
not.
the map, it's a code when you talk about it.
Well, yeah.
Well, it is on some, is
Yeah,
this still on the zoning maps?
it's actually not on the zoning
No, it's
map.
Because
colored.
it's just, it's coded.
It's
Oh,
colored.
color,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's on to the left-hand side.
So actually, that might be,
Yeah,
I don't know if this is, it's
How
fine, we
do we,
don't have to worry
how
about
is
it.
it described on the map? So
It's just a
listed
key
It's
way.
just
zoning
color
I think
coded on the
it's
map.
color, and then it's symbol, it says symbol on the left-hand side, I believe,
district. Yeah.
and has the color
the,
coordination.
yeah, the symbol for the color.
My zoning map, if you want.
I mean, it could be code, might,
Let me grab my map, I have a full-size map in my office.
Full-size
just to see
map?
what's wrong.
um, it's a little thing, I think it might be holdover language from like years and years
Well,
ago.
in the old days, like, you'd have crosshatched here,
Yeah.
and slashes here, and slashes the other way somewhere else to identify them or
And you,
whatever.
but you would
Blank
sometimes
ones.
have like, you know, you'd
Now
have,
that we've added more and more districts or
Yeah.
something, there's only so many things you can do with crosshatching a
Yeah.
section, yeah.
and
I
what we're
don't
doing,
think a lot of people would even look at that word symbol.
No, you're right.
You just
It
gotta
can
go
be
We've
right
done.
talked
Yeah.
about it
It's not
before,
gonna
so
do
I'm
anything,
bringing
but
it up.
If
Yeah.
we're
We're
correcting
trying to
it, we might as well
finalize
correct
things.
it
Yeah.
as quickly as possible, yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with whatever we do, but I mean, my only recommendation would be to try to keep it short, just because it doesn't need to be overly,
Right.
we understand what it is, it's
Yeah.
The
abbreviated.
title is
Yeah.
explaining
That's
what
fine.
it is.
If we came
This
up
is
with
just-
the proper word, nobody would know what it is probably.
No, that's right.
Like, what do they
Yeah,
call
the
all
zoning
those
map just says
military
legend, and then
abbreviations?
it lists the colors, and then B, color CBD, color GR. So the
Legend.
zoning,
But that's the
Legend?
symbol to reference
right.
to the color, right? So
Yeah,
Legend
I think it's
could work,
fine.
I guess.
That's good.
Use legend.
we
Um,
got bigger fish to fry.
This big, yeah, there's much bigger fish to fry.
So many,
Um,
more symbols.
That's fine.
Symbol is 6, legend is 6.
So, do we have any other question? I know before we get to 4.4, because I just want to kind of go over that a little bit. Any other questions leading up to that? So Caroline, so on 4.3, there was a comment committee, do we need to have the dates of the plans, or is there a way to avoid that in order to not have to update that section every time a plan is amended? And so, you can see her response, the best practice is to include the date of each plan so as to avoid confusion. You could also reference the plan without a date and add, as most recently amended and on file with the office of the town clerk. This may prompt folks to ask the town clerk or the planning department to confirm which map is most up to date. So, she said best practice is to have the date. You could have some language that says, go talk to the clerk, but
I think it's,
yeah,
I like how it is.
I'm fine with it, mostly because I don't think the maps are really gonna update that frequently. It might just be easier to have.
2013.
2013, there you go, that's it.
So, it has legend, might be the word.
Well, the legend is just showing, is a description of what it is.
Sure, the colors.
Yeah,
So it says
Well, right,
legend
legend.
zoning.
no, but the letter wouldn't be part, the
Yeah.
legend is what you have in a map to show what's, the layers of the map, but,
So,
no, I think symbol's fine. I think we're
I'm good, I'm good.
just move on. So, any other questions before we get to 4.4?
I have one comment. So I think the copy I have is the strike-through, whatever, but it doesn't have the split boundaries section, like with the strike-through.
Did you know that print out?
Just, I mean,
I'll take,
Well, this one here, like that, like on the
yeah.
structure.
Oh, maybe I'm looking at an older, I probably.
No,
looking
I
at-
don't know.
You're
I
looking
can
at
show
the
you
other one,
some
there's two
background.
versions.
Okay, no, I mean, I just
I'd take, Yeah.
wanted to head off
Yeah,
a
check-
question, but
check
I
your
must be
papers, there might
looking
be-
at an older one.
There might be 2 section 4s, that's
Okay,
in our
okay.
package, so just
I'll
look at
check.
the section.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
there are 2 section 4s.
Oh, okay.
One with the strike-throughs and one without, right?
I don't know if it was.
Well, see, this,
So,
uh,
So this one was without.
Yeah, I printed two sections, one
And then this one
without.
here.
It might be
Yeah,
in there. Chief.
this one,
We got this one here.
yeah, I have this one that has strike-throughs, but it doesn't have the,
No, so that's not strike
That's
throughs.
not
Those
the
were
right-
some track change edits that are showing
Oh,
up
okay.
strike throughs, so you might
okay,
have,
okay,
there should be a second one though.
okay,
Yeah, this
Okay.
is what it looks like.
okay, I'll look for it. And then just one comment under the number 2, the description, purpose of districts. I just don't like the word intrusion, so it says, these districts, pleasant environment, retaining natural features, and provide separation from the intrusion of incompatible and disruptive activities. I don't know, I don't love that word, but,
Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of, I would just be more kind of specific rather than it's,
All right.
so just this,
these are scary.
this is
Yeah, but when, like, what's
That's-
section 4, establishment of districts, number 2.
Yeah. I agree with that, actually. So, these districts are intended to secure for residents. Habitable environment, I don't know, because this is essentially where you live.
Provide
Well, it's not so
separation
much
from
incompatible, it's the
incompatible
word
and
intrusion.
disruptive, I mean, I don't know why we
That's
need
what
to
you
say
have, because
intrusion.
we live in a commercial CBD.
Yeah, you can live in a commercial, so,
Just provide separation, I mean, provide,
to provide,
Buffer?
provide,
I wouldn't want to use that word.
and also,
Encroachment.
well, that's also kind of like, you know, we're also saying like, you know, the GR is meant to like, you know, provide a go-between between the residential
Yeah.
and the commercial, so we're saying that we're doing it to all be kind of in harmony with each other,
Layers, kind of, yeah.
so,
Um,
I don't know,
yeah, no, I'm trying to think of the words, though.
it just
Would
sounded a bit hostile.
Would encroachment be better?
Meet at the source.
Yeah. Yeah, like the commercial district, like, general description is much more kind of descriptive of, yep, it's a commercial district, it provides
Right.
goods and services. This one's kind of like, sounds very,
Yeah,
I don't know how
Yeah.
to describe it, just kind of
there are
like
hostels
Yeah.
in that section.
intrusive convenience stores.
Here there be dragons.
Yeah, maybe,
I don't know, yeah. We can think of some language there. These districts are intended
Please take out, just say to provide separation from activities that belong in other zoning districts.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, something less hostile,
Yeah.
I would prefer, but.
These districts are intended to provide separation between
So just
commercial
like
zoning.
under the
Oh.
description, and before it talks about like
These
RA.
districts are intended.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because over here, it just talks about general residence.
Yeah, which is,
It's
I mean,
more-
I like the descriptions, I think it's good, it talks about retail.
Encroachment, I mean, I look under definition of intrusion and it said similar
It
encroachment.
doesn't just even have to have that word intrusion.
Yeah,
just be
that's what I'm
from
saying, like-
Yeah, I'm trying to
incompatible,
find a
just
better
where
word than that.
Right,
From
just
activities.
provide separation
Activities.
from different
activities,
activities.
yeah,
or so-
or not just the
So,
intrusion.
alright, these districts are intended to secure for residents a quiet, habitable environment provide separation from, commercial and more intensive uses, or, I don't know, something. Cause you could say a commercial district is a more intensive use than a residential
You
district.
can, you can
It
just
be-
say
How about
other
intensity?
activities that
Instead of
belong
intrusion,
in-
Word out of
intensity.
the highlighted right there.
oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't like any of them, but I mean,
What do you have? You have this,
What about intensity?
huh?
Instead of intrusion, the intensity.
Says
The
encroachment,
intensity?
imposition, incursion, interference, intervention,
Exacerbation.
invasion.
Interfere.
Yeah, invasion, like,
Invasion.
Yeah, that's more.
Yeah, invasion.
I mean, geez,
Jeez.
it's just like
No, I agree
like a
with
stop
removing
and
the
shop,
language.
like, relax,
Provide
folks.
Well,
separation.
intensity isn't so graphic, but it does indicate hotter, more different aspects of it.
I don't know. Just provide separation from,
Incompatible,
Incompatible.
disruptive activities.
Incompatible or,
that
yeah.
would- That was
Just
belonging
leave
to
out
other
the
zoning
intrusion of
districts.
Yeah.
from the incompatible and disrupt, so take out intrusion of. Just go straight to
En-
from the.
Encroachment is a little more
Encroach.
politically correct, isn't it?
I guess, I mean, if you all feel strong, like there
Yeah,
should be
just
some
taking
word,
out
maybe a lighter
incursion
word,
of
but,
might as well, yeah. If we just take out incursion of,
Intrusion.
yeah, just separation from incompatible activities that belong in other districts.
Just take out intrusion, leave it there. Intrusion of.
I kinda don't like incompatible. So,
I
my reason
don't
being
like
is,
incompatible or disruptive either,
So,
but intrusion is,
I actually like, so I brought up encroachment and as replacing intrusive. And I could say, cause yeah, you were trying to have a separation between, there's a pure residential district and here's a pure commercial district.
Mhm.
I don't like incompatible because,
right, we're
Alright,
saying
you
that it
can
is
have- yeah, I know,
compatible to
there
have
are-
one
yeah,
next to
but
each
That's
other.
not it. I
Yeah.
think what the meaning of this is they don't want it to overtake that area, the intrusion, overcome, so that,
they're trying to have clear separation, this is where you live, this is where you shop or go to work.
Right. But look at our zoning map, it's all over the place. We don't have, like,
Yeah. No.
we have business next to RA,
Yeah,
next
we
to
have
LM,
The business
next
is
to,
in the middle.
yeah,
Provide separation.
yeah,
We have a lot of spot zones.
Yeah.
right. So
because they used to have little mom and pops.
there is
everywhere.
separation, but if you're calling the other district like an intrusion or like an invasion, like, we're in trouble, 'cause
how about
it's-
interference, if you put that in there?
I mean, I don't really like that either, but I mean, I'm just one person.
That's not
Suppose.
ours, but.
You might have to change the wording around a little bit, but if you,
Separation from,
Just go
provide
straight to
separation.
activities.
What was that?
Just go straight to remove all that and just go provide separation from activities that belong in other zoning districts.
yeah, that's what I like the best.
Lose the intrusion.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense, but. Okay. To provide separation from, sorry, one more time, Jim.
No, I just think they just lose that, so provide separation from activities that belong in other zoning districts. Gets rid of all the ugly words, but still has the same intent.
Yeah. Would it be provide separation from activities that belong in other, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that could work. I
Yeah.
guess.
I'm just thinking like, I mean, like, the commercial district is, like, it's a more intensive district because it has more free, you have
Yeah,
more
well, I like
visitors, you have more travelers, so I
Right.
like the word intensive, I just don't know if it makes sense to include it, but it's fine, you know?
Intensive, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be looking at traffic at morning and evening time.
Yeah. Cause like belong in other zoning districts, well, what other zoning districts? More intensive zoning districts,
Yeah.
or commercial districts.
Yeah,
Provide
intensive,
sep-
yeah.
Intensive.
Intensive,
I
I like that.
Yeah.
I like intensity, yeah. From the intensity of incompatible activities that belong to other zoning districts.
Separation from activities that belong in other zoning districts of more
You don't have
intensive
to have
uses.
disruptive necessarily, but incompatible meaning it's not something that belongs in residential.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason I didn't like incompatible is that, well, you could argue there's a reason there's mixed use, but that's obviously, there's a compatibility between living and working and shopping at the same location.
Mm.
But these districts are specifically residential because they're intended to just be separate from commercial.
Mhm.
So, I think I'll go with your language, Jim, and
Yeah.
I think we'll just kinda see how that goes. So,
I don't think
These
anyone
districts-
will miss it.
no, these districts are intended to
What
secure,
word then are we leaving it as?
so these districts are intended to secure for residents a pleasant environment, retaining as many natural features as possible, and provide separation from activities that belong in other zoning districts.
could just get rid of that, the intrusion altogether, just say provide separation of incompatible and disruptive activities that belong in
That's
other
what we
districts.
just did.
Huh?
That's basically what we just did.
Just eliminate that, right?
Yeah, I got rid of the
Find another
it just provides
Got rid of
separation from
intrusion
activities that
and
belong in other
incompatible
zoning
and
districts.
Disruptive.
Don't matter either way.
I think it's, yeah.
I mean, the districts are self-defining, right?
Yeah.
They are, yeah,
What-
so this
what we-
is,
What we mean by being incompatible is defined in the,
yeah,
you know, in the,
and the districts themselves are
in the district, yeah,
defined,
so it's, you don't wanna say something that then would imply that
yeah,
things that are incompatible when we're saying this is what you could do with that other district,
yep.
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Well, if an issue does arise, Jim, you have the authority to,
Yeah, oh yeah, no, we're protected in other parts of the code.
right.
But, yeah, I just find this section a little bit interesting, the descriptions of the districts. Because, I mean, when does this often come into play, though? Right? So if I'm in my own property and it's zoned business, I can only do what's allowed within the table of use.
Yeah.
I can't be like, oh, well, business clearly tells me it's, it's defined as this, so I can
Right.
do something else. It's not, I
Right.
can only do
Yeah.
what's in the table of use.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, this is just
Fluff.
Just
fluff.
informational.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is kind of just fluff.
It's really saying what the
Yeah.
philosophy of having the districts are.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's-
Purpose of districts, like I said.
Yeah, it's good to establish it, but from a legal standpoint, it's not really,
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, so you go to Bylaw, I think it's going to be, you'd fall more on the definitions than anything
Yeah.
they have on what the uses are on the table, the use table.
Yeah.
They're allowed in there, so.
All right. Any other questions before 4-4?
I just have one
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah.
Maybe numbering the pages might be good.
Oh, for the
For-
the amendment?
For the member, yeah, like passing them out to the planning board or something.
Oh, yeah, go to page, yeah, I
It
can
might
do
make
that.
it easier to
Yeah, I can do that.
reference things,
Yeah.
on the.
For the bigger ones
for the bigger
especially,
ones, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I know, we're
Yeah.
struggling here, what are they gonna be like?
Yeah. If it's easy to do, that's a.
Yeah, no, that's just footnote.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not,
Yeah.
yeah. Can do that, no problem. Okay,
Are you on 7?
so 4-4, I just wanna kind of briefly
Oh,
just
4-4.
ask any, kind of go over some stuff. So, in 4-4A and 4-4C, you notice I crossed off the language regarding stuff that has to do with the term figure. And so Carolyn has some kind of, she says, use the term figure. Is it clear what this means? I don't see any figures in the zoning map. And that's true, we don't actually have figures in this, like I was mentioning earlier, those actual here's 200 feet from this,
Yes.
feature, to this feature, that is where the zoning boundary is.
Yeah, so that's what the figures will be. This is this is Cumberland Farms. So the gentleman next door is locked in, and, Cumberland Farms here. So the guy next door has a portion of his property, you can see here, the yellow is on his property. But if I asked you how many feet is it on his property, there is absolutely no way of telling that. They have to go through all the deeds looking back to find something that, is it 5 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet? And even if you do a figure,
You're not giving me the deeds, yeah.
they could come back and go, I guess it's 10 feet, and I wouldn't really have I can't say, yes, you're right, or no, you're wrong. Because there is, again, and this is clean, because I have dealt with this gentleman that lives here, because he wants to build in that side, and there is no trees, no manholes, there is no figure that he can go from. So he's just trying to find the history, if there's something documented somewhere, and we're
This
looking on our
is-
side.
Kind of the conundrum though, so even if there were figures, and I think there were at some point, it had to have been, because that's why the language comes from, not this map, but the one that was amended, in 2021, I think, when you guys added the property at the new ball fields, that became part of the PCRC, I think that was the last time the zoning map was amended, that map itself. That's the map of record. So even if there used to be figures on the map from 97, that kind of doesn't mean anything anymore because they're gone from the map. That's that's kind of my interpretation is
Yeah.
that, you know, if the
So-
map of record's the map of record, you can't be like, well, the map in 85 had a figure here. It's like, well, we got rid of the figure.
So
It's
the
not
deed
really-
wouldn't have though what zone it was in, would it? I mean,
Depends, so
Or just-
again, it depends when something was built on and when it was done lately.
Yeah.
So, again, the only real case we came across was the gentleman on A1 Auto on Main Street.
Yeah,
He's actually right here,
yeah,
and he's on the neighbours. This neighbour had done work, and he found his plot plan on a deed that showed a setback for it. So he went off of that and says, would you accept it? And I'm going, yeah, it's a record somewhere, because otherwise I'm breaking out a scale rule and trying to figure this into this.
yeah, yeah.
And you could be like, again, how am I going to argue over a line that I can barely see to
Yeah.
justify?
Yeah.
Again, if I'm going to enforce something, I need something to back myself up, and if I can't
Yeah.
definitively do it, it's tough.
So the zoning is not on the GIS map then, or?
The what? Sorry.
The GIS map, the zoning.
This is it. This is
it.
the
This
GIS.
is-
This
that- that
is
shows
the
right
digital-based
down to
zoning
the-
map.
Yeah, you can get down to a pretty good, you still can't say, because again, if you're,
But it may not be accurate.
it might be 100%, so it's again, if you're wanting to build and you
Yeah.
need, again, we've come across it with a gentleman up on one of the streets,
Yeah,
he turned his garage the wrong way, and he has 2 foot, he's like 18 inches cut off his garage.
Yeah.
It's a weird looking garage, but there's 18 inches missing, because he twisted into a setback.
ah,
So we're going 20 feet from that, so,
Yeah.
so when you do a plot
Yeah.
plan, we
Yeah.
have a definite measure, because we have it's 150 feet due west, so we have a specific point that we can measure from. So that's
Yeah.
why anytime we build any new plot plans are good, because it gives us that specific measurement.
yeah,
But not to, again, if you look at our split zones, most of them go with roads,
right.
they follow roads and land behind, or it's just a mess, there's just no man's land, no one's ever going to build there. It's
So
these
like-
spot zones are
A
hard.
good example is the straight lines, right?
Yeah.
Here, I think we saw another one. This is kind of awkwardly placed. That was probably, at some point I was at it, I would imagine there had to have been a figure including what that separation was or why you
Those-
had it. But
Those
it's,
corners and the.
yeah, but it's no longer added. And so how you interpret it, you can't look at an old map to interpret because this is the map of record.
Yeah.
Is what I guess my
Yeah,
thing is,
Yeah,
you
you
like,
can't- it's
let me
like
interpret
change-
your zoning by looking at the 1954 zoning map. That's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, it's
not
like
how
zoning, we're rewriting zoning, so when this
Yeah.
comes into effect, so hence, a lot of houses in this town are pre-existing non-conforming, because they went with the zoning got changed. Like, by doing the ADU, all in-laws become non-conforming.
Yeah, I have a question on
That's
that.
life. That's what happens when things change. So same with the zoning map. If this zoning map changed, so again, just to give you a quick example of one that we really had an uphill battle with through the zoning board was Cedar House.
Yeah, with the
That was
parking.
it. So
Yeah.
they were fighting over, like, the neighbour was appealing, and he was like, well, it goes back to when it started, which it's not the case. For some reason, the board went down that road for a while until I brought up a map going, well, until 1956, it was a business zone, so if we go back to when he started, he can pave the entire lot. He doesn't need a special permit. He might as well walk out the door now. Because, again, it went from, I believe, a gas station and a sandwich shop. Now it's a restaurant and bar. It's been that for a while, I believe. And that's the use, that's the illegal use, because it is in the residential, not the gas station. Because that was back in the history. Now it's a new use. Again, after 10 years, the use is, after a certain time, you're in there. So that's where it can get tricky.
Now they're closing.
They're closed, yeah.
Are they closed?
Yeah, what a shock that was when my wife read it to
The
me.
Cedar-
So why did they
Cedar
close, so
House?
why did they close, or?
What was it?
The Cedar
Well, they wanted
House,
they needed the
that
parking.
restaurant?
Yeah, yeah,
Which
It
one?
took them 6 months to get approved
It's
and
up
still had to go to the
near
planning board.
like
Yeah,
Newport
yeah, yeah.
Village.
Oh.
It used to
Kind
be
of
Patriots
like, yeah.
Tavern.
Patriot Tavern.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
closed.
they
down.
didn't work on
Carol's
it. Now
before
it's
that.
closed.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
It's closed because it kind of went like they spent 6 months and 6 different sets of plans to get approved for something they should have got on the first night.
yeah,
So that's a lot of money to spend.
yeah.
Because the whole parking area, really, most of that shouldn't have been that big an issue, really.
No, it should have been insignificant because they actually originally went for 50%, which our zoning says special permit, you're allowed to go 50% of a non-conformity. They reduced it down to 30% because it was just the parking. It wouldn't have changed the building itself because the building has a set seating, it has a set amount of bathrooms, so you can put all the parking you want over. It's like I always used the example at the meeting was Beacons. Beacon has probably 200, 300 parking spaces back there. They're only allowed 100 something people in there, so just because you have all that parking does not mean you can put that many people in the building. So it was a straightforward, like, it's a small business, Like I was there once or twice, I stopped going there when I first came to town, because when you tried to leave at night time, you once blessed yourself and you took across the road because you couldn't see, because people were parking on the street, so you couldn't see oncoming traffic. It was a danger.
Yeah.
This would have been a life safety thing to put people on the property, clean up the front of it so you didn't have cars impeding your view.
Yeah.
It would have been, it's a small business. It's a small business that the town had, now it's gone.
Is that why he did it though? He just,
He got tough at the parking, says what killed him.
yeah,
So, because he still had to go, he'd have to go through your board, Jack, the planning board, because he's increasing the parking, so he'd have to do a site plan as well. But he spent 6-7 months, 4 or 5 different sets of drawings at a few thousand a pop.
That's
That
awful.
burns your pocket out pretty quick.
he worked his butt off in there
That's
too.
really
Yeah.
awful.
He hustled in there, that's too bad.
Yeah, because it's a nice little, again, it's been there for
Yeah.
200 years or something, I believe.
And those were there over 70 years, 'cause,
Used to go there.
huh?
My uncle used to go there.
Yeah.
My father used to go there.
Yeah.
That's,
Like everybody said, like I think Phil Mackey spoke one night on it saying he used to get off the bus when he was a kid there. And he remembers it being a sandwich shop and a gas station. So it's been something since I think 1840. So
Carol,
hopefully,
Carol owned it,
If you,
he was crazy, like,
Oh, yeah.
if there was, people sitting at a table, he wouldn't let you come in, sit down with them, you know, and then, if you drank too fast, he would give you another one, and if you had to finish what was in front of you first. Jim, I'm curious on that, at the Cumberland's, is it because of the setback that he wants to build?
Oh, so the
was-
gentleman, yeah, he lives at the back of Cumberland Farms.
Right.
The right side of his house is at the split boundary. So he wants to build into it. So our split boundary says you're either 80% or you have to go with whichever's on. So he'd have to go with the business side because he's not 80%. That's the two options we have right now is 80% of your lot is in the zone. You can make the other part that zone. Or if you don't have 80%, whatever part is in buildings in each zone meets that zoning. So house is right at it. He wants to go into it, but you don't allow residential and business, so he can't go into it.
Is that the brick house?
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
set back off the street. So he's right at the line. So he wants to increase his house because he had a little kid, and he wants to make a bit more room that way. But the way our zoning is written right now is he's not 80%, so he can't go in. And if he does go in, he has to be business use, which doesn't allow residential. That's where if we do the split zoning like we're thinking about, now he's allowed to go into it, but he has to keep the setback, which, again, he's keeping setback off a commercial entity. That usually goes better than a commercial entity keeping back off residential. So this would allow him to build onto his house and get the full potential of his lot. Because again, that's a weird spot zone. It's literally for Cumberland Farms.
Yeah.
Like, could you go to a town meeting and say, I want that business zone reduced just a lot? Yeah. And then he could have his RB there and increase his house and get full potential.
What is this?
Should be pretty easy with just a
Oh,
majority vote now too, right?
Yeah, it should be good. Like, but he has to get a warrant article, get all the signatures, go all through that
That's awesome.
process. It's up to him.
You know, I have a property and then, it borders a railroad and then, the state took a lot of it and they built a bridge and they said, it didn't have dimensions on on two of the sides because, they didn't know what it was. They couldn't figure it out, you know, so they said roughly or something like that. They said, well, how can they do that? But,
So,
The state can.
speaking of split boundaries, I want to kind of go over this again. So obviously, before, just to kind of refresh, I brought up the whole, hey, here's a bunch of towns around us, here's some examples, and we did kind of a combination of a few. One of the things was, the board would like a language to ensure that only the more restrictive use be able to cross the zoning district boundary line. One is that the language that other towns have that makes sense, and we're in situations where business district abutting residential district, but I guess Jim, does that kind of does that that's never mind. I just think, what do we have here now? If it's overly, are we thinking too much about it, or should we kind of refer back to what other towns have?
Yeah, okay. Oh, is that sometimes, okay.
that's what you were saying earlier, Jim, that, like, the last two lines is, we're going the other way, it's, more restrictive into the less restrictive.
Yeah, so it protects the residential, so if say, if you go, all residential is either, say RB is 15 feet, RA is 20, and then rural is 25. If that goes into a business, say if you're rural up against a commercial or a business, like, or even CBD near the centre of town, you have a 0 side yard. So if you're moving residential, you're staying 25 feet off it, but if you were to bring the business side into it with a 0 setback, you'd still have to go to more restrictive, which is the residential, you'd be keeping 25 feet back off of that, which is kind of good to a degree. It also plays well with, because you do have buffer zones as well, we have the buffer zones of, so like the minimum buffer zone we have is 26 feet. So that'll help us too. So you always want the more restrictive going in, because more restrictive is residential. You don't want the opposite. Personally, I don't think you'd want the opposite. If I have a factory beside your house and my setback is 4 feet, now I can build my factory right up to 4 feet to a residential, because again, you're going from a business into a whole residential neighbourhood. But taking a residential into a commercial neighbourhood, none of the commercial businesses are going to complain about a residential home getting closer. Again, it's 25 feet or 20 feet, but you will get a lot more if you had a factory and you built it into your neighbourhood beside your house. But John, Sarah, Phil could be next door neighbour to you going, now you just moved the factory even closer to us, where we had a buffer, now we don't have anything. So that's why you always go to more restrictive. So the residential can grow bigger, because that's the one you want. The business, commercial, you don't want coming into the residential neighbourhoods.
Because I thought we changed it, that you had to be, like the buffer zones, had to be from the boundary line and not the property line.
Yeah, so buffer zones come from the district
Because when
boundary
they
lines.
did the mall across from, you know, where Kentucky Fried Chicken went in, and the mall across from Murphy's little strip mall across from Walmart.
Oh, yes.
It's up on the hill there.
Yeah.
Well-
That's before my time in Kentucky Fried
Yeah,
Chicken.
all right, so,
I was there.
Oh, okay, that one there, okay.
so
Yes,
anyways,
yeah.
backs up to Squire Court there. There was the lot line was like, say here, and then there was a 10-foot strip of commercial land that went down between that and the,
Yeah.
between the residential and that building. Well, the thing was, he didn't need a buffer there
Because that
because
was there.
he was up against another commercial property. So there was like a 10-foot strip, you know, like the building was here, or the lot was here, and there was a 10-foot strip of commercial property going down here. And so they only wanted to be, they didn't need the buffer there because,
He was next to it.
Yeah.
right. But then I think we changed the zoning, right? That now
Well, no, so that's the buffer. So the buffer and the split lots are two separate
well, I
entities.
know, but what I'm saying is, but we get rid of the property line, and it said from the zoning boundary line, that you had to have the buffer.
So the boundary line, we haven't changed the boundary, so the buffer still goes off the zoning boundary line, not the property line.
Right.
But
right.
if we do,
But it wasn't that way, I think, when we did something before. I thought we changed it when I was on the planning board.
no, that's still the same, because
'Cause we
that's
had
why
an
we
issue
have
with that.
173 High Plain Street. That building that's going up there right in the
Yeah.
corner, Washington High Plain.
Yeah.
If you look at that right now, at the back of the property, they have a 26-foot buffer, trees, plantings. On the left-hand side, they have 0, because the boundary line is actually halfway in on your man's house next door. So
Right.
it starts midway in his house, so by the time 26 comes, it actually is the property line. So they don't need a buffer there.
Okay.
But if you were to do that with, say, reverse that, where you could say, well, the boundary line, if the land comes over, that's where the buffer and the boundary setbacks will come into play, which is the more restrictive. But right now, it goes off the zoning district line the buffers come from, not the
Right.
property line.
Right.
So, I guess what I'm just getting at, I don't know how we feel about this language as proposed change from the split boundary. Is it overly restrictive and kind of complicated? I mean,
We had that discussion.
Yeah.
We started off with less restrictive.
Yeah.
I think our first,
yeah. So
Maybe
right
we
now,
talk
we're
about
more
that.
restrictive. We talked about less restrictive, and then became something that's
I think
back
more
to being
restrictive
more
is better
restrictive.
because it protects the residential over the commercial.
But also, we're just comparing ourselves to other towns, and other towns don't have it worded like that. So that's why it's kind of, I mean, we don't have to be the same as other towns, but I'm just saying, that was kind of the point of looking at what everyone else kind of does around us. And we can go through this again, but, so they gotta get Norwood, Westwood, Foxborough, Canton, North
Yeah, I thought Westwood was the one that we.
Yeah,
well, this is-
Westwood.
I'd like the wording as it is, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the only difference between, so Westwood have the less restrictive,
Yeah,
so that's the,
and then I'm just gonna bring up Foxborough.
So what it's trying to do, I think, is allow the commercial use to go a little bit into the residential to make it more practical to use the commercial land. Right, I mean, that's what some of the towns were doing.
That
Right.
seems to be what they were doing.
yeah. So it gives you two on, it
Like
gives you
Norwood's.
both ways. So it gives you, say if you were commercial coming into residential, and say the commercial had a 5-foot setback, then, and you were going into a residential area, you'd be only 5 feet off of that residential. But if you're going residential into the commercial, you, instead of being like, say again, take RA setback, we're 15 feet, now you'd be allowed to go all the way down to 5 feet, because the less restrictive is the commercial. So do you really want to put your house that close to a factory, or do you want to have a factory coming that close? So I think that's why we reverted it and went with the
I
more
think-
restrictive, because you wanted, even though your commercial is coming into your
But
side.
you need to have frontage in the less restrictive.
Yeah.
That's why it's kind of like that situation may not really.
And I think the 50 feet thing was, that may not always be, but if, I think the assumption is that if you went in 50 feet on the residential, you wouldn't be right on their line. You're still you may
Most
be still
likely,
50 feet
yeah.
away
So,
from the,
Or
because most,
Yeah.
so there may be exceptions where maybe you could get really close to the other lot line, but I think the assumption in these other towns is that the 50-foot limit protects against, going so close to another property. So again, that, to me, the whole purpose was to try to make a commercial lot more usable if it was short, because it happened to abut residential. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah, it is, but the thing too, the catch too, even though we say, yeah, you're allowed into more restrictive, but then the buffer would drive you back away from it. So again, our buffer started 26.
So I have a kind of
Yeah.
segue. I looked at Norwoods again, just because, we're talking about we don't want, a factory next to a home or anything like that, but I let y'all just kind of read it to yourselves. That's 2.41.
That's not really answering the question for us, I don't think. That's the thing.
Well, it's in terms of if the use is allowed in both districts.
Which will never,
Well, it's if you're between RA and RB, right?
yeah,
So if you're between a business and RA, then you're just gonna have to follow the district boundary line. You don't have any provision to
Likely
cross
neither
over.
one is gonna have enough room to do
Yeah.
anything in it. Which is kind of what this is designed to do, to
Yeah.
allow something that's 50-50
Yeah.
to be used for something, getting that little extra room. Because that would basically leave it, unless it's something allowed in both,
Yeah.
you can't do
Yeah,
anything,
so-
it's not giving you any great.
But Norwood is silent on, residential next to business though.
so just to go back to the look like.
Basically saying can't
The
happen.
latest
do
one
it.
I've been
Yeah.
dealing with is this gentleman. So to his point, Cumberland Farms is never going to get any bigger, it's not going to expand out wider because it can't.
They would love
It's,
to, though.
Probably, yeah. But the gentleman who's in so to Norwood's point, because he's the split zone, it's not the same use, he wouldn't be allowed to expand into the business side.
Yeah.
The way we've written it, he would be allowed to expand to the business side to increase the size of his house.
Okay.
So it does.
So you can.
So I think the way the guys done it here is it benefits residential more than commercial,
Got it.
which I think
So,
I get be more in favour of residential than commercial, being honest.
Yeah.
So do you see a lot of situations where someone has a commercial property, they can't do anything because it is hemmed in by residential?
There's two places I've dealt with it.
Yeah.
One is Mr. Brown on South Street. he's fine because he's split industrial and LM. So he's not too bad, but he was split nicely. The only other person I know that it might affect is up on Industrial Production Road. So Mr. DeSangra has the warehouses all the way down there. I think he's like 4 lots left at the end. But the last 3 lots, I'll never find it when I'm looking for it. The last 3 lots on Production Road, on the left hand side comes to an arrowhead because he starts off with a full lot and then RB cuts across it. But he owns the RB side. So we've talked to him about it, that maybe he just goes to town meeting and gets the zoning line moved to make it all LM, so he can use it. Because again, with the split around you and the setbacks and the buffers, I think he's 3 lots, it kills 2 of the lots completely. So in a place that is fully production and warehouses and everything, he's got 3 lots, 2 of them he can't use. Because when we put in the setback off the boundary line, put in the buffers, the size of the lot he's required, a building in there, he can't put anything on him.
So you prefer just making it all
Yeah.
limited manufacturing?
So something like what we've written up to that degree would give him some chance of encroaching some bit into the residential side.
Is
Which
that
is the
something
upfront
that we could look at, like in the future as a part of this process? Like finding those lots, instead of putting it on the property owners or the business owners, just say like, we feel that this is an opportunity for town meeting to adjust the zoning map to be better for the town.
Yeah, no, that's,
Especially if MAPC, whatever, is gonna recommend,
And that might
you know.
avoid the spot zoning that comes before the town meeting.
right,
Because if somebody is on their own, they're now really looking at the,
right, and
you
then
know,
people
the-
think that they've
yeah.
got, you know, all these bad motives or whatever, but if we study it and we
terms of getting rid of
see
split
that it could be
boundaries.
better for the town, I
Yes,
don't know.
that's just his lot, just to show you. You can see the kind of way it slopes.
Yeah,
So his property line is actually back here,
yeah,
but the RB cuts in here for some, I think it was just someone drew a line to join from here to this section. Just drew a line and cut through his land, so technically, this one he can build on, these 2 are gone dead.
yeah, I mean, that's bad.
'Cause they're down here, so it limits, this would open up his property a bit more.
who's this in production?
So the production, these last 3 aren't built on, so this one here is completely destroyed with RB right now.
Yeah.
Because again, we have either your 80%, which would be this one he's good on, or you need,
So he has frontage in the, I guess,
On the
less,
road.
in the less restrictive zone, so he's not able to do really anything with this bylaw as written. He needs frontage on the more restrictive zone in order to increase this
yeah, so that frontage part would kill him. So that's the part that,
But that's kind
That's
of a
the
major
part, yeah.
part that everyone kind of includes, is if you have, where are we? This guy,
So we're looking at Production Road right in the back, these properties. So he has frontage on the less restrictive. If he wanted to cross over into the more restrictive, he's unable to. But if he were able to go 50 feet into the more restrictive, while also having frontage on the less restrictive, that makes the property usable.
the frontage part.
That's why, I mean, people can't have it, but if the roles are reversed, then yeah, then, you know,
But then, so then, it falls part 2, if you reverse the roads, this is where it gets tricky on this. That's why I think the frontage thing I never really liked, because if you take, say, the gentleman behind Cumberland Farms, his frontage is in the more restrictive, so now he can't build on it. So if you made it less restrictive, the frontage, this property here could be used.
yes.
But if you got someone who's doing the reverse, you're in the residential coming to the less restrictive, his frontage is on the more restrictive side, it kills him.
so would it make
So
sense to
isn't-
find a way to kind of go either or?
Or is it more,
Or is that
just to
kind of
take the
what we-
frontage out of it? And just say you're allowed to encroach on the other lot, whichever is the most restrictive, and use their setbacks, so your setbacks are good. You just don't have frontage on, that means you can do frontage on either way. You just go
The
with
other,
one.
Wait a minute.
do the other split
What is
lots reference frontage also?
What was it?
Do
The
the
other
other
thing.
ones reference it?
Yeah, so, if you're looking at Canton,
Frontage is less restricted,
Canton
yeah.
is less restricted,
Foxborough?
yeah.
Westwood is less restricted, Foxborough.
They're all
So I
saying
do-
less restrictive.
Norfolk might be a good one to copy. Required frontage.
So where is that district boundary line of any lot in any ownership?
And have the required frontage, so you could play the game as you need the required frontage on either one side or the other. It would kill someone if they were split right down the middle.
Yeah.
So the gentleman on 173 Highest Plains, but he's half business, exactly half business, half residential. He doesn't front on, the lot has frontage lines, has the required frontage in either zone, because he's split with it. To places like, this is where it gets tricky, it depends on your lot too.
So if we use that, would it apply to both the Cumberland and Industrial Road?
No, it killed that one as well. So that's what I'm saying. Do we go with, again, it seems to be showing either, a lot of them are doing the lot with the less restrictive frontage.
Yeah.
So residential will be gone, only commercial could use, take advantage of it. If we do a
That's not
lot
always
with
necessary
max,
though, if it's a split boundary within
Yeah.
a residential, within two
Or do we
residential
do-
lots.
where a lot has, as long as a lot has frontage on a road. Like, that thing is, like, it's a,
So, I mean, I'm in favor of the less restrictive only for the sheer fact that the amount of scenarios of where a business district splits with a residential district. I'm sure they're there, but you also have scenarios where you have a less restrictive and a more restrictive zoning district that are split. So if I have a split lot with, between a less restrictive zoning, less restrictive residential and a more restrictive residential.
the less restrictive gets.
Less restrictive is
Yeah.
great, because now I can build a home on a smaller lot or something like that, or following the dimensional regulations of the less restrictive as opposed to the more
Yeah.
restrictive. If you're thinking of like RV and rural,
Yeah,
you know? But, yeah, the commercial one, if it's already, if it's bordering residential zoning district, it all depends on one, if it has, hold on. But only if the lot has frontage on a street in the less restrictive district. So if I have frontage on the less restrictive district, the commercial district, I likely have a good portion of the lot in the commercial district. It's not like you have a sliver of commercial and all of a sudden
Right.
you're extending this
Right.
commercial use that wasn't
Yeah.
there. It has frontage in the commercial.
Mhm.
So using the back portion of the lot that might be residential I don't think is bad.
And
Yeah.
that might allow them to do something with the lot that otherwise they couldn't do.
Yeah, because they're
Because
limited to.
they're just short 20
short
feet or
lot.
something, or.
Yeah.
but then you're playing, just to throw another spanner in the works tonight, if you say less restrictive, which is more or less restrictive? The frontage, the lot coverage, or the setbacks?
Yeah.
Well, less, what are you talking about? It's about the less.
So it says less
restrictive
restrictive lot,
Yeah, the less restrictive
or it's
district.
frontage? Less restrictive district, so district as a whole is, so the lot has frontage on a less restrictive district. So, say you're up against LM, or say even highway business, take highway business district, not
Okay.
much of it, but say we have some. So we have like, over here,
Alright, right here, right?
so we've got rural here,
Mhm.
and you got highway business here. Highway business, so which is the more or less restrictive, their setback to the side says it's 25, but I know CBD in the centre of town is probably, again, just case the worst case scenario. So CBD, centre of town.
CBD's right.
Right here, yeah. So say I'm right up against Maple Street here, and luckily they're following the plot, corresponds to the plot lines, just my luck. But say you had a split lot line,
Yeah,
CBD's setback on the side is 0.
on the side, yeah.
Is 0, and where it's say it's RB beside it, you're looking at 15 feet.
You don't have RV next, well, actually, I guess you're doing one portion.
Yeah, or you have GR, which is 10 feet.
Yeah.
So if you go to more or less restrictive, it would be central business.
But you're only extending by, we could change it to
Yeah.
30 feet, you're only extending by a portion, you're not extending the entirety of the lot unless it actually is the entirety of the lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess,
Yeah, it's one of those cases,
Talk about
every example is different.
So somebody's gonna get helped and someone's gonna get.
Could get, yeah.
It's
So it's kind of on the frontage side, you go with the
But I'm just
frontage
saying
on the less restrictive
why
one.
it has the frontage though is, again, if I have a lot, it's clearly like a residential, and a back
Yeah.
portion touches commercial.
Yeah.
I have nothing to worry about, cause you can't have the commercial go 50 feet towards the frontage if it doesn't
Yeah.
have frontage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's only the lot that's clearly, like, it has frontage in a commercial,
Mhm.
and a sliver of it or a portion of it may be within, like, I think right here is a good example, Jim. This is, I think it was Walpole Park South, where are we? So Walpole Park South, I think this portion of it is RA, but this is very clearly has frontage
On that.
on Walpole Park South, so
Yeah.
he is extending hypothetically 50 feet here.
Yeah.
If the roles are reversed, then, yeah,
They could
the
go in.
commercial wouldn't be able to access that, it would just
Yeah.
be residential going.
Yeah, no, because I was thinking, because if you go to your point here,
Yeah.
if you're going the less restrictive,
Mhm.
the less restrictive is this side.
Yeah.
So then he can't do it,
Also, I wonder, here's another
so it
thing.
doesn't help him.
We have a buffer between commercial and residential. So if I'm hypothetically moving a district boundary line 50 feet into the more restrictive,
Mhm.
okay, you factor that in as my workable property, don't I still have to now factor in a
Still
buffer?
have to factor
Yeah.
in-
You still have to factor in
Yeah.
buffer, yeah.
Right,
buffer.
so you're really not, you're effectively, if you go 50, you're really effectively going 30.
30, yeah, because the
you know,
buffer's going to
or,
keep
well,
you.
less than 30.
But again, to my point, say you do the lot that has on the fronts on the street with less restriction. So less restrictive, again, this one will work, because
Yep.
less restrictive actually would be RB, because RB only requires 20,000 square feet, that's where LM requires 40,000.
No, well, that's why we define more restrictive by less restrictive by the ordering of the districts.
Oh, just by the order done.
Well, I think that's what the intention was,
But
right?
that's
Yeah.
only speaking of residential, it doesn't compare which one is less restrictive,
Well,
Well, it
residential
doesn't
to
specify
commercial.
that that's only residential, it just specifies,
At the ordering, so this wasn't broken up before, it was all together as one. So. I
So
think-
you're saying from the top down, you're going
Top
less
down.
restrictive, rather than actually what the dimensional requirements are.
Say that to them.
So you're saying, that's what I'm just, that's why, because I'm doing the opposite in my own head, just
Yeah.
from zoning, just from,
Yep.
that's saying from less restrictive, or more restrictive to less restrictive, going
Yes.
down the page.
Yeah.
Not on the fact that you need 200 feet frontage in rural, and you need 125 in RB. The rural to me would be more restrictive, because you need more.
Yeah, so that would be, in theory, your interpretation
Yeah.
is only enforcement. I
So
think that's
why
why,
it's clear up.
that's why we had, the language was in here
It was-
before, basically stating they're listed below in order from those that are more restrictive to those that are least restrictive for the purposes of
So
regulating
it's
split
keep them
boundary
rural.
that
lots.
covers both
That's why we're putting it back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, that's,
Yeah, no,
I
I-
want to clarify that, because
No,
that's if I deny someone, they're going to appeal me, and they're going to say, well, why are you denying them? Well, this is more restrictive lot, and they're like, well, no, this is we read it this way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
it's kind of taking you, covers you, in
Yeah.
a sense,
Yeah.
like you don't have
it's
to be the one to say
specified
that.
which is. more
Yeah.
restrictive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives you a.
So then, yeah, going with the less restrictive would help in that scenario.
And that's an error.
Yeah.
Patrick, can you go to Westwood up there again?
Yeah.
So you were saying maybe get rid of the frontage on the restricted area, but when I'm looking in here on what we have written in this, what if we, on the third to the last line, lot has frontage on a street? What if we put comma there, and then we went just down to the second to last line, and where it says the regulations applicable to the less restrictive zoning district shall extend into the more restrictive zoning district? If you get rid of that,
So
middle
did you
language,
get
and
rid
if you line through that stuff, how would that work with?
So then technically it would mean that if you got rid of that in the more restrictive zoning district, it just means you have to have lot on the street, your frontage on the street, which every lot is frontage on the street.
Right.
So then every lot would be eligible.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Because in that.
So, I mean, would that work? And, I mean,
Yeah. Because then you're,
how would that work if you eliminated that line there? How would that work on, say, either the Cumberland or the industrial
it
road?
would make a difference to either lot then, because now you've allowed them, because both of them front on the road. So then you'd fall back onto, to your point, which is actually a good point, would then fall back into that you're putting in the more restrictive, which would be rural, going down the list, would be
Yeah.
more restrictive, but your frontage, as long as you're front on a street, which every lot has to, would allow any lot to
So say industrial, he'd be able to build it as commercial or whatever, and then put his, the buffer zone, he'd be able to put the buffer zone in
Yeah.
there, which would be mostly in the residential area anyways, right?
Yeah.
So it.
Gives them a
it-
little
it
bit of
should
room,
work,
but they're
right?
still, yeah,
That would open
I
it up,
think
I
the
think.
buffer zone,
Protects us.
kind
too.
of, yeah, I mean, that is
Because
kind of
again,
your protection.
the buffer zone's 26 feet to
Yeah.
a degree, some of them are up to 40 feet,
Yeah,
depending on what you're doing, so some of
Oh,
them
yeah.
can be 40 feet as well.
that's true, so you really,
So,
I mean,
so,
you're
so
getting a
if
little
he,
bit of
if he
relief.
decides to build
Yeah.
commercial, he could go into that residential area, but he could use that as, the buffer,
Buffer.
right? He's
Mhm.
really not encroaching in it with the building, he can't
No,
anyways,
he's just
right?
taking, instead of having
No.
his buffer being on his, because again, he's gone off the,
Well, that's just the 26-foot buffer, right?
if he's that close, the 26 buffer's going to kill him going into that lot anyway. Because the buffer, so to take High Plain Street
Yeah.
again, High Plain Street have it, literally, you have the building here, and then you have the gentleman next door.
Mhm.
His lot has, so this is business, this is residential, his 26-foot buffer is already on this gentleman's property. So if this was to come up, it would benefit the residential being able to move in, because he doesn't need a buffer. But he's gonna be encroaching on his buffer, but that's his decision.
This
So,
is,
so High Plain Street, where is it?
This is that new building.
That's the new building.
Yeah, so he could encroach in,
So
the other
this is him
person's-
here.
yeah,
See the way, so right now his building is right
yeah,
here.
business and that little sliver also.
So that, you can't tell, but that sliver, that's actually a lot. So
Yep.
the man's entire lot is residential, but if neighbour bought or anything, his 26-foot buffer is already on his property, so he's
Yeah.
allowed to build right up to the property line.
Yep.
Except for the setback, obviously, but
Yeah.
he doesn't need a buffer to put, he has a buffer on the rear,
Mhm.
but he doesn't need one on this side because it's in his property.
Yeah.
So if
so
the
that
buffer's
kinda works
there,
in, that kinda works in reverse of what I had said
because the commercial
earlier
can't
about
go in,
on Route 1 over there,
Yeah.
right? It works in reverse
Yeah.
because,
which is good, but if the gentleman in the residential wants to go into the setback, he can, as long as he keeps the setback from his district off the fence. He
right.
can, then he's choosing to go into the buffer zone,
So
that's on
he only
him.
has to have the setback from the property line,
Yeah,
the residential guy,
yeah,
and the other guy is forfeited, well, not by his fault, but,
well, having again, the commercial's already winning because his buffer's already in the residential side, so he's allowed to use his setback off just for building. Cause he technically, say if he was to build up there, he needs 15 feet for a business district. Normally you'd have 25 foot of a buffer zone and then you're building. Right now he could go 15 feet to the property line because his buffer zone is in the
right,
next
and the other guy's
portion.
property, yeah.
But yeah, no, I
So-
kinda,
So how do you think that would work if we eliminated that line and a half there, or that line?
yeah, I think,
So,
You want to, hold on, let me bring this up.
yeah,
so you, yeah.
so in
So-
the third to the last line, right after,
On the
frontage
street.
on the street, put a comma there, then line out the rest of it until you get down to, regulation, and then, cross out that, and then pick up the regulation applicable to the less restrictive. Right.
So, getting rid of restricted zoning.
That might work.
Get rid of this?
Huh?
That might work.
I think it would, and then it gives both of them an option,
Yeah.
but you still can only go 50 feet. We could even make it 30 feet instead of the 50 feet if that's what we wanted, right?
Yeah, from there.
From there,
So allowing it to go both ways is
Yeah.
what you're,
I think so, yeah.
sorry.
Because it says you have to front on a street for your lot frontage.
Frontage on the street.
If your lot, like this gentleman is split right down the middle, and his lot is all his frontage, because he's split.
How much were you getting rid of?
What's shadowed there?
Just exactly that amount?
Yeah.
Okay.
Frontage on the street, that'd be
So the comma
regulation.
after frontage on the street, the comma, and then we
Yeah.
pick up, that could be shadowed too, yeah. And then pick it up, the regulation applicable to the less restrictive zoning, where it all stay, right?
Yeah.
Where a district boundary line divides a lot laid out and duly recorded prior to the effective date of the establishment of such district boundary, the regulations applying to the more restrictive zoning district may be considered as extending not more than 50 feet into the portion of a lot in the less restrictive zoning district, provided the lot has frontage on a street. The regulations applicable to the less restrictive zoning district shall not extend into the more restrictive zoning district. I don't think we really changed anything.
Well, you're saying frontage on the street, you're not restricting that frontage to be
The more
within
restrictive.
the restrictive zoning district. You're not saying that the frontage has to all be within the restricted.
Yeah, so if you kept it in where, I think what Ed's
Yeah.
saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, in the more restrictive zone, so if I have a lot, I need 125 feet, but 70 feet is in the more restrictive, I don't have my full 125 feet.
Okay.
But if we take this out, as long as you frontage on a street,
Of
then
the-
you can go either way, but you're still locked into the more restrictive zoning. What are you saying?
It could even be almost, has the proper frontage on
I just,
a street in, say, the particular zone,
Yeah, you
right?
probably want to say.
So again, that's where it can get tricky, and that's what's in, I like the way you're thinking, I mean, that's in my head too, is, do you just say frontage on a street? Or, 'cause if you say the required frontage, we have a lot of lots that are non-conforming lots, don't have the frontage. So now you just wipe those lots out, can't take advantage of it, because you don't have the frontage.
self-explanatory, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't do anything with it.
You can't do it, so do we just leave it like what Ed's trying to say is, as long as you have frontage on a street,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be the required frontage, because some lots don't, as long as you have frontage on a street, because the way it's written, my understanding is, if I read it fully, is provided the lot has frontage in more restrictive district. So your frontage has been the more restrictive district. But what about if you don't have all your frontage in the more restrictive district? How about only half your frontage in the more restrictive district? Then you don't apply, you can't apply for this.
So that would allow a
Does that make sense?
non-conforming existing
To
lot
detect-
to
so-
be able to do something.
Yeah, so that guy on High Plain Street where I think he only has like 75-foot frontage, if I remember correctly, so he doesn't have legal frontage. So if we left it, he has a lot on the more restrictive, which would be, or leave the less restrictive, say we're in the less restrictive, which would be the business, he still wouldn't have legalized frontage.
Well, you'd have grandfathered frontage.
Yeah, but this,
It's specifically saying effective date of the establishment of district boundaries.
which was, these were done in
Yeah.
1956, our boundaries haven't changed since 1956. Our zoning sizes, lot sizes are actually pretty much the same, that's why some subdivisions from the 60s, they're still valid today because our zoning lot size frontage has not changed.
So the lot was laid out.
Okay, so I mean,
We
you're
got
dealing,
zoning
well, this is
districts
really only
changed, so
it's
applicable
not-
to,
We've had zoning districts change.
Zoning districts-
My district changed.
Yeah,
I
but
was-
we haven't
I was
had what's required for a
conforming and now
lot.
I'm not.
Yeah, because your district
It was
changed.
it went to
Yeah.
resident RA, or RB.
Yeah. But we have an old
So-
subdivision from I think it was 62, up off of North Street, that is 15 lots. It's all wetlands now, it's already in the Norwood line, can never be built on, but it's all wet. But all those lots meet today's zoning, because our zoning lot size and frontage has not changed since 56,
Yeah.
56.
Yeah.
Accessory structures, things like that, small things have, but the primary hasn't. So I think that's what, do you get what we're?
I don't know, I honestly, I feel like I like the other towns, because no one's doing the more.
Go back to the other town just for a second,
Everyone's-
just to try and see if we can get it
So
out.
Patrick, are all these very similar because towns go to the same
Oh, yeah.
consultants, the same zoning
But they just,
consultants?
everyone
and
copies each other.
They just,
Yeah.
Don't
I
even
just-
need to go to a consultant, that's
Yeah.
they
do
just
the
copy.
free
Yeah.
version and look at the other.
Because
tab.
most of the towns that, when you write zoning,
Same,
have gone through have either done it before us and gone through the headaches
yeah,
and got sued or had appeals.
yeah.
Like, okay, we need to change your zoning, and they've adapted, because again, we could spend all night doing this,
And again,
and one person will come to me going, you missed this, and you're like, oh,
Right,
because it does
Yeah.
happen.
yeah. So you're saying, you like doing the less restrictive, is that what you said?
I like it
Patrick?
because you need to have, the whole thing about having frontage in the less restrictive indicates that the likelihood, the majority of the lot is in the less restrictive.
Right,
And so all you're doing is providing room for what would be a commercial use
So that's why
to
I,
exist.
yeah, but that's what I like in kind of Ed's point where it says just frontage on the street, because say if you have
But it
a-
doesn't
But-
work the way we
but
have it, it's
still,
only
yeah.
for more restrictive.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, so
It's
that's
like
why you
not
lose
part of the
same
equation.
road problem.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
But if we go to the less I like the less restrictive side,
yeah.
but that's the use or the setbacks in. You're allowed to go into the less restrictive, use their setbacks.
Yeah.
We're saying change just the frontage part. The lot has to have frontage, so this one has to have frontage on a less restrictive district.
Mhm.
So take Cumberland Farms gentleman,
Okay.
he's in RB.
Yep.
the part he wants to go into is in business, he's in the more restrictive side, which means he can't do it.
Yeah, so that's, but that's,
Kills him.
okay, but if we're having it one way, we're killing the other way. is
But
what
no,
I'm getting
I think we're, again, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're thinking of is if we leave it to that way, the less restrictive, but on the frontage part, don't say it has the front and less restrictive district, it just has the front on the street.
It's
Just
still,
the
it's still
frontage.
only one way.
It still
It's
works,
still,
the less
it's still
restrictive
only
works.
extending like residential, it's not extending
You'd have to
commercial.
change the,
Well, no, it was so to take to Mr. Sangro's property,
Yeah, it would, yeah.
he fronts on a street.
It wouldn't.
well, if you guys.
Yeah, but he's got the frontage on the commercial, so.
It doesn't matter, you're only allowed to extend,
50 feet into the portion of the lot in the less restricted zone.
Yeah, no, that's what we're
Right.
saying.
Provide the lot as a street. The regulations applicable to the less restrictive zoning district shall not extend into the more restrictive zoning district.
So do we have a comment here already?
I
Not
think
yet.
so.
So that's what I'm saying, if we read this right now, I agree with you on going in with the less restrictive. But
Yeah.
first you have to get there, and if this says you cannot have, it won't work unless you have a lot that fronts on the street in the say we change this to less restrictive zoning, which I know you're getting at, then Mr. Sangro's property is good because it's less restrictive zoning. But the gentleman at Cumberland Farms is in residential B, he's in the more restrictive, which means he cannot do it. Just on
Yeah.
frontage alone. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say, is if we remove the frontage part, just say, as long as you have a street on frontage, residential can do it, commercial can do it, but for going into the lot,
You have to go from,
you'll go with the less restrictive lot.
why can't we
You
do
go into
either
the
way
less
and change it to 30 feet?
So Norfolk, I think Ed
Well,
brought this
You
up
can
as
do
a
it
good
either way, but you have to
example.
do, is it less or more, which way restrictive? Because say if you go more restrictive, you're going to go with the residential where it's 25 feet off or whatever.
So-
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
so this list is saying, so residential is always
The more-
more restrictive over every commercial.
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's what Pat, I
So
think
there's
Pat was
no
saying.
way
going-
you can,
You can extend you can
Yeah.
say
You
commercial.
cannot extend the business into.
Yeah.
you can never
So that's what
extend
I'm
a
saying,
commercial.
Never do that.
Yeah, you want to go less restrictive.
It's in scenario, but alright.
I
It
think we
makes
should go
sense.
either way.
I think I'm having a stroke. I'm not, because I think
I'm
I'll
guessing-
not explain myself right. Because I'm trying to say I agree with you.
Yeah.
Go with the less restrictive,
Uh-huh.
and that allows it to work that way. I'm saying the portion we have that says your frontage has, if we change it to less restrictive, your frontage has been the less restrictive lot.
Yeah,
I'm saying if you're in a residential area and your
Oh, yeah.
frontage is there, the frontage kills you.
yeah, and I think Ed brought up Norfolk having some sort of district boundary line divides any lot in any one ownership
There you go.
record at the time of one. A use that is permitted in one portion of the lot may be extended 30 feet into the other portion, provided the first portion
Perfect.
includes the
Yeah.
required frontage.
That's a lot easier to
That's-
Right,
understand.
that's a lot easier to understand.
Yeah.
And I
Right?
think
And
it's consistent with what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's right, you want to
Yeah.
allow someone
So-
who doesn't
Yeah.
respond.
You want
have
a
enough-
Either
little
be
bit of
high intensity or
flexibility,
Yeah, just not-
Yeah.
they just
either
don't-
way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
I
I,
And you're limiting it to 30 feet.
I like this much
so
better.
you're not
How do
allowing
you
them
read
to
that?
do-
That
Yes.
can go both ways, right?
Yeah, no, that's
You can
the
go
thing,
both ways going to that, yeah.
because the other ones that kept saying like the lot has to be on the less restrictive street.
Yeah.
Again, it kills all your residential. You can never
Yeah.
jump your residential over. That's what we were just saying. Lose the on the street, on the frontage side, not on the whole thing.
No, I know, the way we had it written, I think there's an easier way to write it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Norfolk
this is
has
it.
First
a
one
lot.
says.
Let's do
prior to
this.
The first portion, the portion you're expanding has required frontage already.
Right,
Yes,
That
Yeah.
you're not just expanding it beyond what would normally be allowed for that frontage.
yeah.
yeah.
You already
Exactly.
got
I
it.
think this is much better.
Yeah.
So do we want to go with the 30 feet or go with the 50 feet that we mentioned earlier?
We can say 30.
I'm fine with 30.
30's,
Huh?
yeah.
I'm fine with 30. I think it's,
It's giving
it
him
doesn't-
enough to do something he might not normally be able to do without
Yeah, it'll,
doing something
Doesn't go so
That the-
far in that there
Yeah.
are risks that
Yeah.
that
that
there's
you're
not
doing
allowed
something
land
that's
before
not
the next.
residential.
Yeah.
And with our buffer zone, the 26
gonna
feet
cover
plus
some.
30, you're at 56 feet anyway, so
Yeah,
you're helping.
yes.
But yeah, now that was just thing maybe I'm explaining it wrong, but that's what I was worried about was if you had the frontage had to be on the less restrictive, it killed all the
I
residential.
don't know. But I think that who knows? The reason towns may have had that only is because that scenario provides, right, commercial, higher tax rate, right?
Yeah.
You have properties that if they have frontage on a commercial, but they're unusable,
Right,
it's a waste of potential taxable income. So you
Exactly.
wanna increase.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that's what you also want to, again, if putting that the frontage has been less restrictive, kills your residential.
Yeah.
We, in this case, we have a lot, like, so if you take the old school on 50 School Street.
Yep.
Everybody hates that warehouse being there, but it's in LM.
Yep.
So there's no choice, it's stuck there. But you'd rather the residential encroach in on that than that encroach in on the neighbourhood because it's completely surrounded. So something like required restrictive, less restrictive, would kill all the residential from getting into it, but it would allow the factory to encroach even more into the residential. Which, that's why I said the frontage, I like where Eva's coming from, where it just says, as long as you're front on a street.
Yeah, that's
That's
exactly,
what you
as long
want.
as you have frontage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On any street, whether you're in the more restrictive or less restrictive,
Yeah.
as long as you have frontage.
And that says the required,
Yeah, you don't-
proper,
Required.
it says
Yeah.
the required frontage, it says, all
Winner,
right,
winner,
I'm making a
chicken
motion
dinner.
for Norfolk.
Yeah,
All right, Norfolk,
second.
congratulations.
All right, we done with that section. What
I
is
think
that?
we're done with this.
Not to kick anybody on that one,
What do you want?
with that, to that point, Ed's point, required frontage. If you have a non-conforming lot, you're not allowed to do it then.
So we just say
Yeah, why not, if it's,
that the lot
because you're
has
changing it?
frontage?
Well, no, so take the gentleman again on on High Plain Street. He's 75 foot of a lot wide. He doesn't have frontage. So even though half his lot is in business, he's not allowed to encroach in the business because he doesn't have the required frontage.
yeah, but he's existing non-conforming, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that
but he
stops him.
couldn't use it because it says the word
It says
required.
required frontage. That's what I'm saying. I'd leave out required frontage.
Just frontage?
Go back to Norfolk.
Okay, back to Norfolk.
Just to
Mine
throw another
out-
spanner in the
Mine are
works.
required.
Sorry to, Paddy's gonna kill me one of these
So,
days.
portion of the lot required frontage, so your scenario you're bringing up, the property is
So this,
75 feet of frontage.
Yeah.
In
so this guy here,
what district is it fronting?
he's bought. So he fronts half
But 75 feet total.
Business?
total.
Got it.
So he's a pre-existing non-conformity.
So he doesn't have.
So if he's
required
75
frontage
feet
either,
and
I
probably
get that.
50 feet is in RB and 25 feet is in
Yeah.
business, because we put in required frontage, he's not allowed to get advantage of that.
Okay. I see.
And same with the gentleman at Cumberland Farms. He's got, I think he's not quite, but if he had required frontage, it says the lot frontage for less restrictive. He's up against business, which is
So
less
what about
restrictive.
The Norfolk one.
So,
That's what I'm saying, do we get rid of, that's why I was trying, maybe I'm not explaining like the first time. I'm trying to say, if we only do lot frontage on a street, you don't, not the required frontage,
So,
because if you go required frontage, then your lot, first of all, your lot has to have required frontage. Most of our lots in town do not.
Okay.
how about if we had like another line added, we put in except for, pre-existing, non-conforming?
No, you can just take out the word required.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then is that gonna open it up to somebody who has a lot that doesn't have the frontage and nothing on it, and then they can build something?
No, they can't. No, so this is a split boundary if you want to expand or do something on it. If your zone is split, the required frontage is the required frontage on the lot. Like the house on Cumberland or on High Plain Street, you have to have a building to be non-conforming. If you come in with a lot that's 75 foot wide,
Yeah,
you'll never get a building
you
permit.
don't get to,
Because it's not, most of our town, any of the new lots are created today and built on today, meet today's zoning. The rest of 99% of this town, if I took our zoning book today, probably even your house be non-conforming.
right.
Mm,
We
majority-
shouldn't punish people just because they happen to
Or
build
the bought
under 1950
But
zoning.
if we
Like,
say,
they were in compliance
Yeah.
then, so.
if we say that first has
I
the
have seen
required
that.
frontage,
Yeah,
Yeah.
people
So
that are
we changed
existing
the zoning.
can't take
Right.
advantage of this to build into another zone because they don't have the required frontage. That's what I'm thinking of, if we just go frontage on a street, take out the required frontage, then the people like Common Street and High Plain Street can take advantage of the split boundary. It's not creating a new house or a new factory, it's
Yeah.
expanding what's there.
I think it's fine.
So you just want to
Let's put that question to Carolyn,
Yes.
right? I like Norfolk, we're gonna bring up what's the
And she'll
harm
look
getting
at
rid
it.
of the
Yeah.
frontage, and we get
Yeah.
a council.
Yeah.
And propose taking out required, and see what
Yes.
she says.
Yeah, because I think
So
that
you could actually line out, the required, and then after, and then put frontage on a street.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Just includes, yeah, includes frontage on the street. Well, I mean, frontage is frontage on the street. You can just say frontage, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's more of a council question, because I
Yeah.
don't think you want to open yourself up into some weird scenario. So
Well,
if he's
that's what I was
yeah.
thinking, if we
Yeah.
get rid of that, then,
yeah, I know a lot of people have done the required frontage for a reason, so someone's come up against this. But like as my point of thinking is, if you do put required frontage in,
Yeah.
it stops a lot of our lots from being taken advantage of to split boundaries.
True. But, yeah.
'Cause
So
if I
then,
don't-
but you're gonna need, however you extend it 30 feet, should you have now, should you meet the required frontage now for that district?
No, so being allowed to go 30 feet is, you're allowed to go into that zoning district 30 feet.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have 30 feet to go. You might only have 4 feet to go.
Uh-huh.
Like I think the gentleman at High Plains
But you
Street.
have to comply with the dimensional regulations of that district. So
Exactly.
if I have a lot that I don't have enough frontage,
Yeah.
even if I extend the frontage over 30 feet, I still don't comply with the new district.
Exactly.
You can't do anything.
No,
So,
so that's the catch.
so you could
Can't
go
do
up and put
anything
in
new.
may extend up to.
no, yeah, I mean, if it's a
Huh?
pre-existing non-conforming, yeah.
Yeah,
Jim, you could extend up to 30 feet.
up to 30 feet you can extend
So
into it.
maybe you could add that in there, right? Between extend and 30.
Well, so yeah, may
Extend
extend
up
30
to-
feet into the other portion. So you could have a portion
extend up
where,
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's good.
because you could have a portion where your house is on residential here, but your land could be, say it's, you have an extra 70 feet to go to get to into the business district, but the zoning line is here. You have 70 feet, but you can only go 30 feet into it, and then you're done. So,
Yeah.
but you don't have to worry about your setback, because you have it already, but you can only go 30 feet into it.
And that's why it's not as much of a danger going too close to another property, because you only can go 30 feet.
Into it, exactly. And if you come the other way with the business and you have that length, you still have the buffer to play with too. If you're at 40 feet, say to the property line or the district line, you have to keep back the 26 feet anyway. So you're only going to be probably coming 10 feet into it. But I think if it's asking for you to have the required frontage
Yeah.
and the less restrictive, it kills a lot of residential to a degree. Because if you're in a highway business district, that's less restrictive than say RB. But your required
Provided the
frontage.
first portion includes the required frontage, so I think it's the portion
'Cause
which you are
extend it.
extending.
Right.
So use that is permitted on one portion, may extend 30 feet into the other portion,
yeah.
provided the first portion includes the required frontage, aka
If I'm
I have
RB,
more commercial,
I want to go into residential.
residential,
I
to
need
meet the
my
frontage of
frontage
the
on
commercial.
commercial. But say say I don't have the commercial. Say I don't have the frontage.
So this is the question for town council.
Yeah.
No one has it like that, so I
I know, that's why I'm
Yeah.
thinking everybody has some variation on frontage
These
on
have required
less
either
restricted
or more.
district. So does that kill a lot of, because again, if we do less restricted, it kills all the residential.
Yeah.
So it only allows commercial to move, it kills residential moving, unless they have an existing lot with a larger frontage.
Well, do we want commercial extended in residential
Yes.
anyways?
Well, it works both ways.
Well,
provided the
that could work both
situation.
ways, but
For,
This
for
way-
this very unique
My
situation.
thinking is this way, with less restrictive districts, which would be all the business, does not allow the residential to come in, it does allow the business to go, it only works one way. If we got rid of less restrictive and just had frontage on the street, then it allows you to go both ways.
But
So
to
is the
your point
commercial
though,
still
John,
gonna have
to have
I think
proper-
frontage is
proper
important
setback?
what's
though,
the
right?
real purpose though?
So-
Are we to provide more residential lots or more commercial lots?
Well,
Either
so-
way.
I think a greater use of the lot,
It's-
so if your lot
yeah.
is split and you really can't do either or,
I think that's the best
You
example.
can't do both,
Yeah,
so
do both.
pick
Well, no, that's, I think perhaps you said the perfect word right there.
Yeah.
It's to expand the use. Because to your point, Ed, you thought it was like a new lot. This will not create new lots.
Right.
It's not, it's an existing use, an existing building that's there. And it allows you to expand, because you might have been limited over the years because of the split boundary, going, well, I can't go in there, now I can.
Right, yeah,
It's to expand the use, it doesn't create new lots, it doesn't allow a factory to appear out of nowhere
yeah,
in a residential, or a
Yeah.
residential appear in a factory area.
Yeah.
It just expands what's already existing.
Something to that effect might want to be worded into it then.
Yeah.
This is.
yeah, expanding
applies
the use, I
to
think, is a good way to explain it to
existing-
people.
Yeah.
Like when we talk to the planning
Yeah,
board,
it's not
when we
new
talk
lots,
to
it's
town
existing.
It's
meeting,
expand the use,
we
that's,
that's how we
Yeah.
should phrase it,
yeah,
because
the
that's what it
primary
is.
use on the
Yeah.
lots that's
Extend
been
30
used.
feet, do we maybe want to say extend up to 30 feet?
Well, I think it's
I don't know
implied
if
because it
that's
may be
important,
30
but-
feet. so it
Yeah,
could be-
you don't
could be
need to
anything
extend to
less.
30 if you can only extend to 28 or you only want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know
So-
if it's an issue that people would think you have to go 30 feet in.
But it says
It doesn't
maybe.
make
I'd say,
sense.
yeah, I like this where it says a lot may be
Maybe
extended, because
extended.
that way, if you say up to 30 feet, then they'll go, well, it says up to 30 feet, the buffer's in the way, but you said I can go up to 30, I'm gonna
Okay,
step into the buffer. This says may, that gives you, well, if I have a buffer, you can't get 30, you're at 25.
okay.
So I think the may would be good, but I think, yeah, as Caroline, again, I'd see.
I'll
it's-
ask about the
it's
frontage
there.
thing. I guess we can move on from this in terms of going to section 7, but I think the why frontage is brought up in all these is because if you're gonna extend a less restrictive use, you want that property to
Yeah,
be, I guess, majority, or at least have frontage in the in the
but
less
it also
restrictive use.
depends on what these towns, so we have our again, the reason I had in my head going the other way is because the town I came from had it that way.
Yeah,
So we have it from restrictive to less by labeling it rural, RA, RB, most restrictive, all the way down to highway business as less restrictive. These towns might do it the way I did in my previous town was, if I need 200 feet frontage, or I need 100 feet frontage, the less restrictive is the 100 feet. So you went with that, the dimensional requirements, not so much
Dimensional, not
what the
necessarily
use was, it was the dimensional requirement. We go on the
Yeah.
use. So some of these towns might go on the dimensional requirements. So when they say less restrictive, residential is less restrictive than commercial. Like, so highway business need 200 feet in our town,
yeah.
but it's the less restrictive. But if I say I need 200 feet or I need 100 feet frontage, the less restrictive is 100 feet.
That's a good point.
So some of these
Yeah.
towns might have done it that way too. I'm assuming because their less restrictive is based on dimensional requirement, not the use requirement. We go off a use requirement here. Which I think they don't like that.
But I think we should let the council look over the.
Yeah, I
and
think
see-
we're thinking
Yeah.
Norfolk, we wanna
Yeah.
kind of see if the whole
Yeah.
required frontage element can be removed and what's the problem with that.
What's the
Yeah.
down effect?
And then if we go with something like Norfolk, then maybe it's okay to delete that first part when we talk about least restrictive, most restrictive.
Well, we'll still keep them.
Well, we just stay with that language altogether, right?
Well, cause it says
What's-
as, for the purposes
Oh, yeah.
of regulating split boundary in section,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
if we end up going that way.
no, you're right, if you do go that way, there's no more or less, so we don't really need that first portion of section 4.
Yeah.
Where it goes over, it's in this order, because it's in the order of more restrictive to least restrictive.
Well, the least restrictive part would be just for the frontage, would still keep the less restrictive
Yeah,
in
I'm
the
saying it's not
need of
in
it.
the language of this.
Norfolk.
The Norfolk,
Norfolk.
yeah,
Work
We
one.
need it.
And we have it written the way it is because
because we're
4.1
using it.
We're using it, yeah, exactly.
explains what's.
So we need less, so we're trying looking at from least to most restrictive, as long as you got frontage
Let's move on.
and a street.
Yes, okay.
All right, section 7.
Oh, it gets full.
So the big thing is we are changing the square footage of signs on the business highway district, right? That was,
So this one, there was a few changes that Carolyn mentioned, they were really kind of minor. 7.2, where's it? Actually, no, I think this might be from you, Jim. Permission from the
Where's
property
7.1?
owner.
Yeah,
Good. Oh, so this is just, we're not including the entire section 7, because this is only a few
We're just
few
cherry-picking.
portions of section
Okay,
7.
you can choose.
Where the other ones were complete revisions, this one only has a few different changes here and there. So 7.2, I think, and 7.1, I think this is what we talked about in terms of, constitutionally protected
yeah.
language, as well as permission from the property owner, because situations where someone puts a sign up.
We've had a few,
I think that's
especially with
good.
elections up in
Yep.
the last few years, we've had some people fighting over it, and the thing was, it's on town property. You still can't put it on town property without permission from the owner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because political signs were in permitted uses, exempt signs were originally in our zoning, then it was taken out like 8 years ago, because it was protected under the First Amendment. But some people were putting signs up on town property going, I have a right to do it, and like, no you don't. You have a right to hold your sign at a polling station, as long as you're 150 feet away, but you do not have the right to put them on town property. You can go to the select board and ask them, they won't side with it. I always have told people it's the famous case of Boston. Last year they got sued, because Satanic Church wanted their flag at City Hall.
Right.
They refused them. They sued and won because they were flying every other religious flag.
Right.
The mayor didn't like Satanic.
So now they're not doing any.
Now they're not doing any
Right.
because they said, okay, if you,
Yeah.
because they had the right, the Satanic flag has a right, so if we allow one sign on town property, anybody can do
Yeah.
it. So usually the select board will never approve a political side, left or right, because they'll get in trouble.
Yeah.
But we've had this running back and forth for the last few years, so I just asked Patrick to put this to it. With, again, it's permission from the property owner, we put that in, because it was never there even to residential. If you want to put a sign on your property, you can put one up, no problem, but you can't go over to John's and stick a sign and go, hey John, I'm putting a sign up because I want to do it. You need his permission. That was always taken for granted, but some people won't.
Yes, it's good to add it.
Yeah, just, it saves me a headache in the long run, trust me.
So, 7.4D, some of that language at the top is from the beginning of 7.4, and then there's the inclusion of letter D. I don't know if there's any question there or confusion there, but essentially, I'm not including, A, B, C. I'm just showing the new inclusion, so I'm not sure if it's all right.
Go for residential.
So basically, all permitted signage not previously defined within these zoning bylaws shall not exceed 32 square feet in surface area and shall be set back at least 10 feet from any street facing a lot line. And I think we got the 32 from temporary signage. Because that's a requirement for temporary signage, is no more than 32 square feet. Alright. 5 has to do with all non-residential districts, and the main change here was changing ground signs to monument signs, which is probably a more accurate definition of what it should be.
So why does it say perpendicular to the building? It's a monument sign on a land.
Should be perpendicular to the street.
No, it's perpendicular to the building.
Generally, this is.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that,
signs
is
like
that the one that
those
comes
like
off
that,
the building?
Signs like that, so you're seeing it as you're passing it as opposed to, I don't know if it matters, I mean, but that's, the language is
So-
from when it was a ground mounted sign.
If
we
you
just
were
kinda
driving
kept
down
it.
the street,
Yeah,
say if this is your street here driving on, you want the sign perpendicular so you can read it as you drive.
yeah,
If
okay.
someone put
From
it
both
this way,
sides.
you're going to be passing by a sign going.
I mean, could I ask you
Correct.
this?
Both sides.
Do we need it though, or, I mean, I see the point, especially if you're seeing it as you're driving, but,
Yeah.
but if you have a property where it makes sense to have a monument sign parallel with the building.
If you, yeah.
I don't know, I mean, like,
It's probably good, it's a good
I think in
practice,
most
but it's a
cases-
requirement.
I mean, there's a number of them downtown that
It's
just
not
have the
residential,
writing,
they want to
the
attract
letters on the,
attention.
on the
Yeah.
You get
wall.
that by
Doesn't
being seen
Conrad
it from
just
both
have?
sides.
Yeah.
Well, no, so
Yeah.
this is a monument
Perpendicular.
sign, which is like
Yeah,
a ground
you're right.
mounted
Oh,
sign.
okay,
yeah.
So take Delaney's Funeral Home.
Yeah.
They take them a monument sign.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you drive down and
And
you see Delaney's Funeral Home.
Yeah.
Imagine
And I
turning
know-
that sideways.
And I know
Yeah,
a church
okay.
that
You'll
they're
see
looking to change the way
Yeah.
the sign is, because
Yeah.
right now it is parallel, and they'd rather have it
Perpendicular.
perpendicular so people could read it
See,
from
read
both
it
See,
both
sides.
coming both
ways.
ways,
I think
yeah.
that's exactly.
That's the
I
intent, I
see.
believe,
Okay,
we done it
okay.
for.
So, what is the purpose of having the external illumination? Because, let me tell you, some of them, their bulbs are awful bright, and when you're driving down, it's distracting, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Cedar House up there, they have them, up on the top of the
Mhm.
building, and when you come up over their hill,
Goosenecks.
it's pretty bright, and
Goosenecks.
it's blinding, you know?
So, this is, so
Cedar, Patriots Tavern.
this portion of it has to do with just
Yeah.
CBD and the business districts, and so both those districts have, I guess, prohibited internal illumination.
Why?
So the centre of town, most towns have it because they want to keep that old feel effect of your sign on the wall with goosenecks shining on the
They
sign.
don't want LED signs.
They don't want the
it to
LED
look all-
flashing signs lit up like a Christmas tree.
Right,
It's
right,
it's a more of a design thing than really a.
Yeah. So the only ones we have in town really are ones that were, so like Tessie's got to keep their one because they took over Mimi's, which had a pre-existing
Yeah.
internally lit sign, so they get to
Yeah.
keep that use. If you look at Raven's Nest next door, same owner, he is the goosenecks coming back on Raven's Nest.
Yeah,
So that's what the intent, from my understanding of the rest of them in town, is you want a sign on the wall with nice lighting silhouetting onto your building rather than the big neon sign flashing as you go by.
okay, yeah, so.
Should
can we-
encourage blade signs downtown, though.
What's that?
They're allowed?
I know
Yeah.
they're allowed, but
Nobody wants them.
businesses are not doing them.
Tell you,
Nobody wants them, yeah.
What are blade signs?
Like where it like sticks out, so that, the same
Oh,
idea, as you're driving
Oh,
by,
okay,
you're not
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh,
Something
is
like
that
that,
nice?
yeah.
So you can see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They
It's
should
a-
almost have them like a little
Yeah.
triangle going out, so.
that
you can
was
see it.
the one thing in Norwood was, cause every time you had to do a new sign in the downtown, it was limited site plan review from the planning board, and it was like it was a rubber stamp, it was kind of the most useless thing, but you found out how much these signs cost, and so I could understand why they don't do the blade signs, even just a poly sign, it was
I
like
know,
a
but
couple
even
grand.
some of the
and
new
they're just-
businesses,
I think they weigh what, they're like,
Really?
if it looks okay on poly and I can
Yeah.
spend it on the inside of my business,
Yeah.
they're gonna do that.
oh,
Blade
It's just-
signs, they're beautiful, but they're beautiful for a reason. They are expensive.
Expensive.
okay.
Even just
Yeah.
like a vinyl sign is gonna put you, it's a couple $1,000s, more than that.
Okay,
So
I was
they're-
thinking they were comparable, like in the same, but they're not in the same neighborhood for many businesses.
From any ones I've seen or heard of, they're expensive.
Okay,
That I know
I mean,
of.
they look good, you hope they would do it, but I mean, some businesses
Yeah.
that are, it depends on the
Okay.
business, right?
yeah, that makes sense.
If it's a convenience store, if it's a restaurant, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think some, like especially downtown here, it gets tricky because like most of our buildings here have a residential above it.
Yeah,
So do you want to have your window looking out and have a big whopping sign right outside your window?
Or the light shine.
Yeah, getting a suntan, so that's kind of a catch, like,
yeah,
again, a lot of our fronts, we're not gonna put a blade sign on a low building.
yeah.
You're going to put it up high.
Well,
That's,
it should be
You gotta
street
have it
level.
away from, walking into it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's gotta be.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
so
at
many
least
feet
8
off the
feet
ground.
up a
off,
little
9
bit,
feet off the ground, which realistically is you're putting it half on the business, half in the residential, and then you windows, a deck, something,
I don't think it's that big of an issue for the residents, I think it's more of an issue in terms of cost,
Yeah.
probably, yeah.
probably, but.
You'd be surprised what people complain about.
And then under C, we're changing the square footage for everyone is 100, not making the business district or Route 1 an exception.
So,
That's what, right, that's what it looks like.
except for locations on which the sign shall not exceed.
So before it was 150 feet for Route 1,
Yeah.
and now we're making everything 100 square feet.
Trying to remember the reason why I did that. I think we could change it back if need be. I think I'm just trying to conceptualize
Be
how
consistent.
large a 150 square foot monument sign is. 'Cause that's
I mean, I have no
You know,
feeling about it either way.
I think,
Yeah.
I think that was it, was the height,
You're not gonna have a 10-foot high monument sign.
the tall signs like outside Walmart when they're high up in the air, they're 8 foot off the ground.
Yeah.
150 square feet to 100 square feet was no different. I think that's the reason you done it, Patrick, was
Yeah.
if you put a monument on the ground, you could have a 20-foot long sign.
Because if
Like, it's
because
gonna be
you're gonna have a
huge.
big sign,
Yeah.
freestanding.
Yeah.
Freestanding signs we allow to be 150 square
50
feet, whereas a monument sign, that's where I'm thinking.
That's
Of.
what you
I'm
want.
thinking of like exactly 4 feet high wall
Yeah.
sign that
You don't want
large.
it 40 foot long.
Yeah.
You know,
You
that
want to
might
keep
be.
it some, so I think that's why you done it.
And I don't even know if 100 square feet is too long. I mean, that seems.
10 by 10, yeah.
Well, think about a 4 by. Let's do math really quick.
4 by
25.
25,
4 by 25.
5 by 20.
Is that?
So it's 25 foot long, so
Yeah.
you're probably the length of this room.
5 feet tall, 20
4
feet
foot.
long.
That's pretty. That's a
That's
pretty
a
big.
pretty
That's a
big
pretty.
sign.
That's a big monument sign.
Big pop. Yeah, no one's gonna.
And it has to be perpendicular to the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too.
So you. I mean.
So the only places
how-
would realistically maybe like Wall Mall, because they're on corner of Cone. If you're on a corner street, you'd be good because you can run it down the street.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody else is going to go to that length.
I mean, in theory, a good example. If you had like a wrapped, curved
Yeah.
monument sign. So something for the businesses on a corner and they want that look, then maybe that's comes into play.
Yep.
So.
Well, that would allow them to advertise both directions. as well.
Yeah.
And the same thing on this side, so.
Yeah. Would work, yeah.
Because it wouldn't, putting on a corner, a diagonal sign is
Yeah.
not gonna attract the same attention as
in front,
a
yeah.
perpendicular getting
Yeah.
it straight away.
And I think that's why you removed it, was
It's a big sign.
a 150-foot sign.
That's all.
Yeah,
That can't be more than 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
I think it's like 30 feet long. Like, it's actually more than 35 feet.
Yeah,
It'd be 30 feet long at 5 feet high, yeah.
yeah.
So
I just
but
have
you're allowed 4 feet max height, so
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Under the definition of monument, we say, the maximum height of 4 feet.
Yep.
But then in every usage, we also say 4 feet.
Mhm.
I guess it just depends if you want to be redundant of.
Good point.
I think it's done that way because each sign in each zone goes through what size they are, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Because you'll get people who won't look at the definition in 14 will see, I'm allowed 150 square foot sign. And they'll go, oh, I'm going 10 foot tall. You have to define.
So if
What
I just
height?
said it's,
I'm only thinking of redundant days,
Yeah.
redundant
Right.
requirements.
This is
Now if
probably-
you change one, you want to
yeah.
make sure you change the
So
other.
in signs, it's probably one of the places you want to be redundant as much
Okay.
as you can.
Yeah.
Because again, ground sign, freestanding sign, blade
Yeah.
sign, wall sign, roof sign.
I think things of numbers in
Yeah.
particular, right? I mean, that's,
So is a 5-foot setback enough? Because Mike Ripe and Norwood, Patrick, is
Yeah.
more driveways you come out of, the signs are there, and you can't see down the street.
yeah.
You know, it's blocking your view of any cars coming in.
Yeah.
So, but this says 5 feet from the property, the street property line,
From the
right?
straight line, yeah.
So.
Not
that's gonna
including
give
the
you
right
about
of
3
way.
feet, but
Yeah,
you wanna make sure it's at least
Oh,
back.
yeah.
street lot line is
It's-
actually
it's
like
back
5 or 6
behind the
feet in
driver's,
height.
Right,
view,
yeah, I
you know?
agree.
So,
Yeah.
And Norwood is awful for that,
yeah.
signs down there.
5 feet back. Just taking a look what we had.
Yeah, because when it was a ground sign, it was originally 5 feet back.
Yeah,
Because that was the whole intent. If you have a tall sign, you had to be 10. You have to be 10 feet back. You can't be lower than 8 feet, so you can see underneath it.
Right,
With ground signs, it was always you could go closer with them, but you had to keep them at 4 feet so you could see over them.
yeah,
So so same with like we do fences in the town, that when your fence comes within the front yard setback, you can go from 6 foot. You have to drop down to 3 foot around.
I think
So-
also, both, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know like the central business district, you can be right on the road, that building can be. So I
Yeah.
think that's why the 5 feet is kind of like, if you're gonna have a wall sign in the CBD, there's probably not a lot of room to work with anyway, so.
yeah.
Right, but you're not gonna put a perpendicular sign there because you're being on the sidewalk.
Exactly, you're gone.
So you're probably down to have that as an option.
Yeah, it's more for probably the business
Probably more
districts,
business.
highway business district. Again,
And honestly, probably more business, I mean, highway business is probably gonna mostly do the freestanding sign.
yeah.
Yeah, and they're gonna be back towards the
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
now, so.
And again, this is usually for, again, the 5 feet, I think the intent originally
Yeah.
was again for highway business, because take, say again, Delaney's funeral home. If you go 5 feet off the street side, you're on the sidewalk, so they can't be, they have to push it back onto the property. So,
Well, it says the
Yeah.
street property line, though,
yeah,
right,
Yeah,
so
which is
it would be on
on
the
the
inside of
property,
the sidewalk.
exactly.
This
That's
is
Right.
the
where,
sidewalk.
So you're probably 2 or 3 feet inside the sidewalk and then 5 feet from there, so.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of the
But
measurement
people
from the front bumper to,
think, okay,
Yeah.
the back of the front door, the
pavement ends
driver's
here, I
door.
can put it right there, but I have to.
Do we want to add any language like that it's not obstructing egress or like that it doesn't obstruct
Does not-
safely?
Does not obstruct sight line.
line of sight.
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Well, how do we like, the way it's written right now, 5 feet from a street lot line. And that's kind of consistent throughout, I think,
The rest of it, yeah.
freestanding too, right? Does freestanding have something in terms of
It's
setbacks?
10 feet from the,
Shall be from a street lot line.
all the signs are from street lot line.
Yeah, they're all from the street.
And if it's not next to a driveway, you're probably fine, but you're right, like
Yeah.
if your sign is right there and you're like trying to
Yeah,
to see around
you
it,
gotta
to
edge
make
out.
sure that you're safe to go,
get edge out and your bumper's out in the
yeah,
Yep.
roadway.
I don't know.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I guess we'll have to, just trying to think, I mean, that's the language that's existing currently, but maybe we wanna take a closer look at that, I don't know.
Yeah, because all the signs are that.
All of them are, yeah,
From street lot line.
and most are 5 feet, the street lot line.
The tall ones are 10 feet.
Tallest, okay.
So the street lot line is on the street.
Is the edge side of this, so.
So it's where the sidewalk on the street.
Yeah, right.
You got the pavement, you got the grass plot,
Yeah.
the sidewalk, another grass plot,
Yeah.
and then the street line, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have, like, so the only way to get, if you didn't have a sidewalk or something, you would be right near the street, you'd be 5
Right.
feet back, so.
Right.
The only one I can really think of is the warehouse behind Dunkin' Donuts on Union Street. We just put in the sidewalk there, so that's good. But before that, didn't have a sidewalk
Yeah.
originally, so that would have been closer to the street, now we got the sidewalk plus the signs back. So then realistically, if you have this, the sidewalk, you usually got the road, 5 foot of a sidewalk, and then 5 feet, you're 10 feet back in anyway.
So the sidewalk is considered part of the road.
No.
You say, no.
No.
It's the right of way.
No, it's
That's
right
the right
away.
of way.
Right away.
It's in the right away.
Yeah, that's right, so
The
the
town
street
line.
lot line is the side of the street. What then do we want to put in, how do you word it? Because if you say from the sidewalk, if you don't have a sidewalk, you defer back to the street then.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, so you're saying the way this is written, when they say street lot line, that's the edge of the pavement? Not
No,
edge
the
of
right of way.
The right
Should be
way.
there.
Right away, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Does that have to be defined? No?
In terms of what a street lot line is?
Yeah, the right of way?
The other option too is to drop it down to 3 feet
That
instead of
might be
4 feet.
interesting, yeah.
So if we drop the height down to 3 feet instead of 4 feet, then it meets our zoning criteria for a line of sight is 3 feet tall anyway, for fences, for anything in any town is 3 feet tall. So would it be easier to just drop it down to 3 feet tall, or would you rather move it back so it's still 4 feet?
I don't know. That,
What was
I think if a business wants it and it's beneficial, especially on a highway,
Yeah.
like, you want them to be able to have a sign where people can read
People
it.
to
Yeah.
see it because they're going by it.
I
or
just
high
think we
speed.
should
Yeah.
consider like, line of sight.
Maybe it just needs to say that, it would be up to the,
Maybe for the ground mounted ones, we can leave the rest of them as they are.
Or something in the beginning, just a note.
Or even again, if we want to go off the street, if it's 7 feet back, say, or 8 feet back, that's more than enough room to see around. Like a standard car is 14 feet long, so if you're 7 feet back, you've half your car past it.
Okay, so say, up at, the Red Wing, where the barbecue place is gonna be up there now?
Yes.
So they really can't put a sign 5 feet back, so they'd have to have a pole sign. They could put a monument sign, right?
So the mining sign would be new. They have a pole sign that
Yeah.
already exists, so that should be 10 feet off the road, but obviously that was a pre-existing one,
Right.
so it's going to be able to keep it. But if it was a brand new lot, if they were doing a high tall sign, they'd have to be 10 feet back, so they'd more likely put something on the building rather than, or they'd put it on the edge of the property where you drive out.
Right in the middle of the parking lot.
Yeah, because it'd be in the middle of the parking lot, so they'd probably put it at either the entrance or the exit there, and put it right at the edge of the property line, so then you can go up 10 feet back, it doesn't impede the driver, you can
Right.
see it coming down the road. But if you were to put a monument sign there, they would be probably in the parking lot with it.
Right.
So that's what I said, Route
So-
1 is kinda,
Could put it in
The 4
A,
feet
the
only
administration.
comes from, because when it was a ground mounted sign, you needed technically 4
4
feet
feet.
of clearance
yeah, they got
from where mounted in the ground to when the sign starts. So that's where the 4 feet's coming, so
Yeah.
does that
Maybe.
make sense to keep it at 4, move it at 3? I'm not.
Well, that's it, to Sarah's point, would you rather keep it at 4 so you have kind of at least a taller sign?
Yeah.
I would do 4 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you do want to make sure
Yeah,
people
we
see
don't want to
the business.
impede
Yeah.
businesses' ability to like,
But then to a degree, how
Share
far
their
do you push
name.
back a monument sign? Because the whole intent of a monument sign is to be closer
right,
out front so you see it. Because
Yeah.
if you go down past Walpole Mall, they have the 20-foot tall sign. You see that a mile away.
Yeah.
Right.
Monument sign, you're not going to look back in. So I think that's what the intent of the 5 feet was. You want a low ground mounted sign closer so you can see that you go by.
Yeah.
yeah. What about just adding something in section 2, the administration and enforcement, when it just says, the building commissioner may, require something to
Line of
ensure
sight.
light of sight or
Line of sight.
something,
Yeah.
like, what, like may,
That's a good idea.
That's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know how you wanna say it, like
Add it.
may,
I'd let Patrick do it right. I just give the idea.
But add a
may
sentence.
modify, or may require a different setback to ensure appropriate line of sight, or something like that.
Well, the next to last sentence, the permit is to be granted in accordance with the applicable provisions of this bylaw, including line of sight.
Yeah,
Where's that?
It's the second to last sentence.
Oh, the purposes. Okay.
I mean, I think it would be good if we say, like, you may, on some application, see it and say, like, you know, you have to move your sign.
back a few more feet, because line
Yeah.
of sight's blocked, and
Yeah.
again, I know
And I think that's reasonable.
DPW or engineering, like Carl would back us up, because we
Yeah.
do that with, like, obviously driveways, people want
Yeah.
the driveway here and there's a pole or something, you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, your line of sight's impeded.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
they would back us up on that too, so if someone did decide,
We'll
I'm
add
gonna
something
appeal you.
there.
Yeah, because they could say, I'm gonna appeal you, and I'm going, that's fine, I have Carl to back me up.
yeah, no, it's
Yeah, like
perfectly
you
reasonable.
appeal to the zoning board and the zoning board will take a look
Yeah.
at it.
And then if I had something
Make
from
an
Carl, goes,
determination.
yeah, we went out there, we looked, you can't see,
Yeah.
they say, yeah, you're moving it back 7 to 8 feet or whatever.
I don't
Yeah.
think any business would want it either,
No.
right?
And
Like, if they have people
You-
getting into
you never
crashes
know, though.
every
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
leaving their business because people can't see.
And honestly, I've been here 6 years now.
That's pretty good.
I've never had a ground mounted sign or monument sign applied for
Yeah,
since I've been here. I can't honestly think of any newer ones that have come even before me. It's something that, it's a unique to
right.
either highway business.
Well, the dry
But this could be
creek,
applicable to any sign
They
if you
put
put it
one.
in zone.
Yeah, they're the last one, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the last one done, which they have a nice one.
But this is applicable to basically any sign, right? Someone could still
Yeah.
put a freestanding sign that's like at an awkward corner or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that, you know,
Right.
so.
But yeah, at least the standing signs they're 10 feet back, so
Yep.
that's a nice distance back. So yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
I find that'd be good.
Okay,
Just line of
that's
sight.
I'll add that.
Go to the next one.
Yeah, just any other things on signs? There was something on the back with wall signs. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that
Secondary
one.
wall signs.
I thought it was fine.
That's fine.
But I don't have any
Okay.
basis to say otherwise, I think.
Alright. Alright. Floodplain, I know we haven't really gone over this one too much. I sent that email out to you all.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions on any of it, the language is really, I'm just trying to do what
It's from the
DCR is
state,
telling me to do.
I feel though we
Yeah.
can't do much about it anyway, so
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I initially had something in there about new construction, and when I spoke to DCR just today, actually yesterday, I can't remember, no,
Yes, yeah, just.
it was yesterday, thank you. They recommended kind of holding off on that and coming back, and either doing it as a separate article or coming back at a future.
Which one?
So the
The
floodplain, we had discussed, just,
Yeah.
do we want to have new construction in the floodplain, or can we prevent that, rather than having a provision where you just do compensatory storage and work around it? And I had language in there,
Well, the
DCR.
original one basically prohibited that.
Well, the original one,
Well,
technically, you can do construction in the floodplain, there's provisions that you have to compensate for
Yeah.
the new construction.
Uh,
DCR recommended not including it with this, because either do it as a separate article or do it at a separate time, because right now it's all about just being in compliance with, National Flood Insurance Program. So,
So it's not in here. but-
it's not in here, I think we just get
So we-
compliance.
we
with
can
it.
add something in the next page.
We can worry about that later, yeah.
There's
it's a
one
tough
comment I
sell.
wanted to.
Yep.
On the first page, table 2C, it's the initials BFE, and I'm not sure what that is, I don't see it explained anywhere else.
There's FEMA BFE data. Let me look it up, what the context is.
Where are you, John?
Front page
Section
2C, first line, BFE, I'm not sure what it's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see any combination of those initials.
Yeah, they should say what the BFE is. I actually looked that up at one time.
Yeah, it's used to access flood.
Is that the insurance thing?
Yeah.
PFA?
So,
PSC?
Yeah.
I think that was related to the insurance or something.
Oh, 3, what is base flood elevation?
base flood,
Okay.
that's what it says, base flood elevation.
Yeah.
And
Of course, that may all be changing, right?
what is that?
All the flood, plain, where flooding may occur
Yeah.
because of,
Yeah, so that would
Climate
change.
change.
and-
Well, yeah, but I mean, the new maps are coming out.
yeah, but
recently,
they're
so
taking into account
Their
there.
account of the most recent information, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
But I'm just thinking it may change faster than people know.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
just-
think the last
yeah.
time we updated it was 2012, was the last time they updated it,
yeah.
so, I mean,
So
Takes
the,
a
yeah, the
while.
floodplain zones will tweak it, the BFE is kind of, they've increased it by a foot, so it depends which zone you're in, so obviously you see the zones of A, AE, AH, AO go on. Some zones you have, it was 1 foot above it, now it's changed to 2 foot above it, so you could build within 2 feet of your basement there.
Yeah.
Some zones you can't build a basement at all, or you have to machine like 6 feet off the ground, in the basement, but all your machine has to be 6 feet up.
yeah,
It
so,
all depends which
let's,
way you go.
let's move on to ADU, that's the last thing
Yeah.
for tonight.
So are there any major changes that, from the last time we went through this, Patrick?
From the floodplain,
No, the ADU.
so, let me bring up,
I know we had a lot of discussion in
Yeah.
the last meeting.
absolutely. I think the only change, so just to kind of add context to this, so I had sent out, it's part of the law that, or I guess the change to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, there's a reference that the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities may do rules and regulations. Well, they, and those regulations would have to be kind of followed. They did draft regulations recently. We had town council look at those, and this is the version of 12/21/2024. That's after she looked at the draft regulations. Nothing in there stood out as anything that conflicts with what we're saying. It was pretty vanilla, I would say. I think it just added clarity to a few things, but, could the draft regulations change? Yeah, but if they're probably gonna change for probably the better, but you can't go against what, is already
Right.
written within 40A.
Yeah, the
So,
basics.
the big things we have, so I don't really think we have anything to worry about.
But nothing changed from when we last reviewed this.
The one thing that did, let's see. I think site plan review. So, last thing for tonight's there. So, this is, we talked about doing limited site plan review. She corrected, I don't know if she explained this at all. She did not.
So at the end of, I think, maybe the last meeting when we
Yep.
talked about it, Phil, you know how you were saying like, that 3.6 references 3.7 and has all those requirements? Yeah, so I said, I don't think we should have, Joe homeowner applying for ADU
Right.
have to say like, I want a waiver of this, I want a waiver of this, I want a waiver of that.
Right, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I sent that to Pat, my opinion. And then so the town council added something in. I'm still not happy with it, but let me see, what does it say? Where is it?
I think it's two.
The way
all
this worded on
provisions.
two.
Yeah,
All
two.
provisions,
Shall not be required to submit a list of waivers. But
Yeah.
not that it's not required.
Required, yes.
I
I think you
want,
should remove the requirement for the waiver on things that don't matter.
I
Also-
think if there's anything in 3.7
Yeah,
that
doesn't,
we as a town think is
Yeah.
required, we say what it is. Why are we telling them that they need to do a light study or ask for a waiver?
Yeah.
All
So-
that stuff, I don't.
I'm not, so to that degree, I'm not worried about it, because honestly, when people apply for site plan, they usually don't ask for like, you were on the, you're on the board, you've been on the board. When's the last time someone gave you an application with a drawing of every building around it and the height and the use of it?
Right,
Which is it one of the criteria?
but it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
The whole point of what we're doing is to make our bylaw better and usable,
And
and
we
not be
also-
like, oh, well, that's there, but wink, wink, nobody asked for
And we
it.
often have
Yeah.
to give waivers to a light plan,
Yeah,
you know,
so that's the
so
thing,
we
so
do,
it's the same
we
as
do
the-
do those things.
Yeah, so the way Caroline wrote it, I think is fine, because honestly, the stadium overlay parking is in there. They come before the building, fire and police when you do the stadium overlay. We don't require them to give us a list of everything, because again, you have to bring in common sense to a degree as well. Just because it's written there, doesn't mean you have to demand it of them. If you know they're going to be going for a parking space, I do not need to know all the buildings around it, the height of them, and the use of them.
Right,
So you don't have to write everything 100%, because being honestly, who on earth's going to appeal you? You'll have to be insane.
this
Although it'd be
is
good
a
to have
very
it
contentious thing,
Yeah, also,
number one, and
Oh, the
so
ADU is, yeah.
people are going to
So,
fight it, and number two, we don't know what commissioner is gonna come after you.
and also sometimes when
get
it comes to the
fired
planning
Thank you
board,
for having me on.
so,
sometimes
We
when it-
hope a long, long time
So-
from now.
Sometimes when it comes to the planning board, we may be asking, or members may ask for things that maybe
Ridiculous,
you're not sure that we should be doing that, you know, which
Yeah.
makes another, it's
but
another
it's
step.
there in black
Then
and
they
white, so they
Then they have
can.
to go back
So-
and come back to us, because,
Section 13 itself, I mean, this is, the same for pretty much everything in the zoning bylaws, also needs to be looked at and probably really kind of
updated.
updated and
Yeah.
figured out.
It has a lot of other things into
To,
that.
to the point of trying to get this to be
Out.
as direct as possible about what you need. So all provisions of 13.6.b shall apply to limited site plan review. So 13.6.
So what does that
B.
mean, though? Not
So
required
they
to
don't have
submit
to
a list of waivers.
But that doesn't mean that Jim
They-
can't say, number 19, I need a location of all
So-
the required
Yeah.
open space.
13.6b. Any
So if I
person.
say, so to a degree, there
So
is,
it's right there, you can ask for it.
to a degree,
This is excessive, this
it
is
is, but
against the
say
spirit of the law.
say I've done 10 ADUs and I've never asked for this, and then you come in and I'm going, well, I don't like you, I'm going to ask for it.
Yeah,
You actually will win a court case against me in 10 seconds flat, because I have to show consistency.
but why are we wasting our time? Why don't we just decide what's needed for ADU and write it in black and
Plot
white?
plan, architectural renderings, and then if we have some sort of
Yeah, which we would-
standard building permit, architectural renderings, plot plan.
Because again,
So
we
why
shouldn't
can't we say
require
that?
anything more
Yeah.
for this than
Well,
we
we
would
could.
require for a normal building.
Right,
That's
that's in the law,
Yeah. Yeah.
that you cannot overly restrict, and that
Yeah.
means things that you wouldn't ask for in a single-family home.
I think I
Well,
would
we are kind of
mention-
already doing that by having site plan review, right? I mean, we are allowed to have site
We
plan
are allowed to
review,
have it, so
and we do
I
have
know, but
provisions for it.
reasonable restrictions.
No, so
Yes.
reasonable restrictions on what you're enforcing, so you can't say, again, reasonable restrictions, you can't say, you have to make this look identical to the main house.
Right.
You have to only have 2 front doors and they have to be green.
Yeah,
Doing things like that are unreasonable, because you have to show it's in your zoning. Site plan approval is in your zoning. And
22 requirements
yeah,
is excessive,
but when's the last
is
time,
unreasonable.
again, but as a planning
No,
board member for
we
years.
all know that, so I think.
When's the last time you asked for 22 of those on that site plan? I've been here 6 years, you've never asked for 22 of those
Yeah,
things.
no, what does happen though is sometimes
But
we
they-
ask for something that maybe
Yeah.
people might think was not required. You know, it can throw a monkey wrench
Yeah.
at that point in the review process.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so
But there
again,
might be something that comes up that you would need to ask that could be,
No,
Yeah, each lot is different, so.
It-
Some of these
every case is
apply,
going to be
some don't.
individual, but again, you have to show consistency. So again, to the point of, if I approve 10 or 12 of these and then all of a sudden I'm picking on one on poor Phil because I don't like him, he's going to win against me in 10 seconds because he'll get me fired. Because again, it's a reasonable restriction. You can't lock onto one thing because you don't like someone. That's why I said, honestly, at the beginning of this, I said, make sure whatever rules and regs we bring in, leave your personality outside. Like we deal with homeowners who are nightmares. You deal with plumbers on your side. I deal with builders on my side who I would love to take their license off and never let them build again because they're so atrocious. but the law says I have to put up with it, I have to do with it.
Right,
I go
right.
to the meeting sometimes to speak on people, and I've had members of the public say to me, "Oh, you're all in favour of this."
Yeah,
I'm going, "No, I
No.
couldn't care less."
I think the bigger problem though is that the limited site plan review requires looking at the requirements
yes,
for the full site plan review.
Right.
Yeah.
And it says that the application then can ask for waivers.
Yeah.
And that's something that's not really, as you said, we don't really want to do that. I think, that goes back to rewriting section 13 to make it more
Yeah,
practical.
I'm just trying to think of
and-
Well, it
a
says,
way to
you got it
put
right
this.
in number 2 here. All
Yeah.
provisions of section 13(6)B shall apply to limited site plan review for an ADU, except that the applicant shall not be required to submit a list of waivers from the criteria listed in section 13(7).
yeah, so they don't have to submit a list of requirements or of
Waivers.
waivers, but that doesn't mean that they don't have to do it.
It doesn't mean that it couldn't be required.
That's
Otherwise,
right,
applicant shall
right,
not be
which is
required to
ridiculous.
someone could require and say, I want to see
Right.
a lighting plan or
Jim would be
Then
like,
shall not
huh,
be required,
the waivers.
waivers.
yeah.
So you don't have to ask for a waiver, but that doesn't
So
mean.
normally if you, so,
I get what you're saying, so.
yeah, so,
it's-
yeah, it's, so normally if I was going for a full site plan, I'll apply for the planning board. But I can say, well, this doesn't apply because I'm not doing this section, so I give you a waiver in my application going, I didn't give you the traffic study because it's not required. You get a waiver from it.
Yeah.
So to Sarah's point, it says, I don't need that list of waivers.
Yeah.
But it's not saying I can't cut down and go, I do want a traffic study for something else.
Even, yeah, yeah,
I mean, you could say, all provisions of section 13(6)B shall apply to limited site plan review for an ADU. Applicants, are
Shall.
not required to follow the requirements of section 13.7, provide, essentially you want a plot plan, architectural renderings.
Not
Which is
necessarily.
not
So this is where you
necessarily-
get
It's
cheaper
interior, I know, yeah.
Well, not
Yeah.
interior, it's 1 or 2 family. 1 or 2 family cannot require architectural drawings.
I
What are
don't
you
mind
reviewing
a,
the building permit?
small list that you
Drawings.
have some leeway with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
so-
a small list that may be required,
Yeah. So
and
that's what
up
I'm
to
saying
your
Patrick.
discretion.
He was saying like an architectural drawing, I'm going, I can't ask for that.
Well,
Okay.
that's why on the next page, B, limited site plan review of detached ADU.
If you can't
shall
ask for
ensure
that, then why
compliance with
can
the
you talk
following
about
requirements.
architecture? If you can't ask for an architectural drawing, then how can you ensure that it's a similar architecture?
No, so architectural drawings is drawings that are stamped by an architect.
Okay,
So Mass Law, section 48 says 1 and 2 family do not require stamped drawings. So if you're good with a computer, or if you're very good at drawing, I have to accept a set of plans that were done either on a computer at home, or even if you're really good and can do drawings, but I don't need to require that. So I can just say, like, what do you draw, like, again, just, I don't want to put architectural
yeah,
plans
yeah.
on it, because someone will
right,
come
but
back.
it's
No, yeah,
there,
you're absolutely right.
it's
Yeah.
there.
So maybe
Yes.
some language.
Use and
left up.
regulation.
Yeah.
Accessory dwelling unit must be compatible with the architecture. So how are you going to evaluate that with a,
Architecture's look.
right, so how are you going to
You still have to give me
evaluate
drawings. You have to give me drawings. If it's in crayon, I'm going to send it back to you.
that?
It has
Okay,
to be legible, but I'm just saying architectural, as long as we get architectural as just architectural, not as in some people, when I say to you architectural, you assume it's an architect's doing it.
right,
And it's not.
okay.
So I just don't want to put that in there, because someone will appeal, say, I'm not giving you architectural plans.
So if I'm doing like a plot plan, right, I could have just a it's a
That-
box essentially, but if you're
Right.
actually looking at a building permit, you need to know how they're
I
building
so
it, and if there's
plot
any-
plan does say legality wise, I have to have a civil stamp.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we say something like all provisions in section 13.6B as required by the building commissioner shall be, shall apply to the,
Yeah.
in other words,
I
rather,
don't like that, I'll vote against that.
I'm just trying to make it more, I try to move us forward.
Well, I
Because-
know, but
Because
like,
otherwise you need to
Like, I'm
come
not
up with
going
a
to require
list
a
of.
lighting plan. Any commission will be insane. 'Cause, again, you have to justify it.
right, so why are we putting it in there?
Well, you have to
If
come up
it's
with, then you have to
insane
come up with a
and-
list of
So,
what you
alright, how
want
about
though.
this?
That's
Okay,
what-
let's
that's
do
where I'm
that.
all-
All
well,
provisions of
I'm-
section 13.6
I'm trying to move us forward 'cause it's
shall
almost 10 o'clock.
apply for
I
the
know,
site
but-
plan.
And you're exceeding my, I have a bad code and I'm at that point in my life where,
Sorry, 6A,
I mean, if people want to come up with a list tonight,
notwithstanding.
Yeah. Like, we
I
can say-
want to get this as simple as possible.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
I'm with you on that.
Yes,
A and C.
So, I mean, there may be some leeway because there may be different things required.
Yeah.
There may be some
Appropriate for.
flexibility that's required here,
Yeah.
because there may be,
Which is fine,
depending on what they're doing, that would be the thing, that's why I was
building
suggesting leaving it up to
So
the
all
building
provisions
commissioner to
of,
decide, for this
of a
I might need
standard
that,
building
but maybe
permit?
not that, something else.
Well,
I don't,
we
I
get
don't
that
know what
explanation of
what they
permit
might
anyway.
be, you know,
So the
that's,
limited site plan's the extra,
Yeah.
because you have,
Yeah.
it's more, because we're going on the notifying the butters.
Yes.
So that's the main principle of it too.
Yeah.
But because we tied it with a limited site plan, it's,
I mean, why don't we just go through them all then?
and see which ones to apply and which ones
Yeah, do we
don't.
want a cover letter?
it could be a yes, no, maybe.
The
Yeah.
cover letter's gonna be pretty strict, yeah, you could do
Well,
a
that's
cover.
the other issue, this is 13.8, not 13.7. That's.
No, so 13.7 falls under the,
Are you
Full
talking
site
about
plan.
the
It
waivers
says-
on
It
13.8?
says under the
Yeah, you're right.
limited site plan review,
It's full site plan review submission kite. So, site plan review should include one more purpose given. Hey, good catch, John. That is full
Are
site
those
plan
the ones
review
you're
submission
talking about?
criteria, not limited site plan review submission criteria. So,
well, I'm guessing it's coming
Part
from
of the
section
project.
6B. So if you look at 6B, the last line, second last line of the site plan submittal has been part of the limited site plan, but of
Yeah,
application
it
may
does say
require waivers from the
3.7.
site plan
Yeah.
criteria of 13.7, so I'm guessing that's why she put it in there as well.
Yeah, but
She was just
essentially
following what was there.
13.
So if you do a limited site plan, you're going to give us all that if it's required.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it should be 13.8.
Well, it says 13.7 in here too.
Yeah, I know, so that's wrong also.
Yeah, I think that's why she grabbed it.
Yeah,
yeah. Jeez.
Well, I think the reason I put in, I'm guessing we're talking like, the only real difference between a limited site plan and a full site plan is what triggers it. You
right.
still
Right,
want to
right.
see your lighting plan, the
Right.
traffic studies, the fire department turning around, they're involved in it,
right,
all the department heads, so.
but mostly things you don't need for, yes, most
Well,
likely.
so again, we'll be rewriting this section, because some of the things, again, what are all the buildings around you?
Right,
You kidding me? You're gonna spend all that money
Yeah.
drawing buildings around you, the height, what the use is?
yeah,
It's enough money on what you're doing yourself. And if you're doing it in an area where you're allowed to do it, again, not to be mean, but the Western Spring, like the neighbours were mad because they all lived in Swamp Pond, now we're gonna have a 5-story building beside them.
Right.
Like it's not keeping in with the neighbourhood,
right,
but
But they're not
that
even
is a
near it.
neighbourhood, it is, cause
yeah,
that's
It's a
part
central-
of that zoning.
central
You're allowed to go
district.
that big.
yeah,
You have, because if you go the other way, 95 West is just as tall.
Yeah.
That's part of that side of the neighbourhood. So yeah, that's when zoning lines butt up against each other. And you're like, well, it's
Yeah.
not with the neighbourhood. And you're like, yeah, but the neighbourhood's
It
not
is,
right
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets tricky.
so,
Yeah,
so,
the buffer.
so
Yeah.
Patrick, so one thing you're saying, we do need to do section 13 over no matter what, at some point.
I'd hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
It'll be about 4 or 5 years from now.
Well, we can't wait.
The rate we're
well,
going,
Yep.
Because this is the fast ones.
You know
Yeah.
why 5 was Xed out? The invalidity clause at the end?
And, because we had not needed due to the severability section added to the proposed amendment, section 1.3. So in section 1, there is the severability clause, so it is the intent of the zoning bylaw that, so section 1.3, is the intent of the zoning bylaw that all provisions be severable, so that if any one provision is determined to be judicial process is determined by judicial process to be invalid, such determination will not affect the validity of any other provision. I think it's because we don't need to have a clause in everything we do, because if we have one clause at the start of the bylaws, it kind of covers everything.
Oh, saying that?
Yeah,
Oh, I see, section 1.
yeah. You know what I mean? So if every use section has a
Severability,
invalidity
yeah.
clause, it's kind of redundant, because
Okay.
so Patrick, did you send out that section 760 CMR 71?
I emailed it out, yeah.
Did you, so it has a lot, in 71.03, it has prohibited regulations with the ADUs, which is the owner occupied, it does not have to be, and you can't do parking requirements, also, it has, wrong page here,
Draft
I lost my
regulations.
place.
I'm just
Oh,
bringing
it
it up
has,
right now.
utilities and emergency access, but then you go down, site plan review, any requirement under site plan review concerning the protected use ADU is more restrictive than those applied in the principal building. Also, impact analysis studies, you can't force that on them.
No.
No.
Right. And, what about the modular dwelling units?
Not
So,
allowed. So we asked about that, because people are
Yeah.
like bringing in, being honest, bringing a caravan in, a mobile home. We asked about that and said, no, it has to be either a slab or a base built on. It has to be fixed. We did ask about that, because that's one of the things, because I think 25,000 you can buy one off Amazon, one of the mini homes.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
actually a gentleman down on 1A builds them for me, and he puts them and builds them on a trailer. You give him the trailer, he builds it, and he drives it up to you, drops it off.
Yeah, there was, something like that on the news, last night, I think,
Yeah,
right?
and that's why a lot of people are,
The other night.
because again, a lot of people get, again, it's going, some towns, so I think Falmouth has had ADUs for 7, 8 years now. Other towns have brought them in earlier on, like certain towns allow them as of right before this came through, had been forced as of right. They allowed them as of right and then had special permits for standalone ones. So every town had its own variation because it was allowed, but you didn't have to enforce it. So a lot of mix, like we did, you mix between in-law and ADU. They used them to, an ADU basically is an in-law. So that's why they put in the provisions of kinship, can't be rented, took that out of it. And the same with that, but one of them was you can't put a modular on it. You have to have it fixed. So that was one of the first few things that came up at some of our meetings.
So the other question I had too is, it said use and occupancy restrictions, a requirement that a protected use ADU be subject to a use and occupancy restriction. What do they mean by the use? I mean, it's gotta be residential, so what are they?
So rental. So rental as in short-term rental, or are you gonna turn it into an office? So you can restrict, so the whole intent is, it doesn't call it a single-family home, but the intent is single-family home for someone to live in it. That's the use.
Right.
So you can't restrict it as in, I can't restrict it, again, third type of kinship, second type of kinship, that's a restriction. Can't be rented, or could I rent it to family, that's a type of restriction.
So the water and sewer never gave us a statement, right? I talked to them and they said if it was detached, they wanted separate utilities,
Yeah, I talked to
right?
Rick, he said if it's detached, he wants a separate sewer line going to it,
Right.
water line going to it. He said it would just make it easier and cleaner.
So with this here says, utilities, safety and emergency access, any requirement concerning utilities, safety and emergency access that is more restrictive than the state requirements.
Yeah, state requirements were actually, so again, state requirements would be, if I have an accessory shed, we say you have to run the power to it. You can't have plumbing out there, but you can't have cooking, or, so we have restrictions like that. But state requirements would, again, I'd have to talk to Rick about it, but we aren't more restrictive than what the state would approve. I think this is gonna be single family home, so it'll be the plumbing and everything, separate meter, it'll be standalone basically if you do a standalone. Detached ones, you're more than likely going to, it depends on how you do detached ones, if you have it detached that you can go into the main house, you're probably going to put its own, keep it on the same meter, because probably family or friends are renting it. You can put an attached one with a device, like where you can't go into the main unit. They'll probably get its own standalone meter on it, because obviously the owner is not be paying for them as well, so that.
Actually, Windsor Gardens, they went through and they put, fixture meters on every apartment. So they have a meter on the toilet supply, on the hot and the cold of each faucet.
Yeah.
They have one in the shower head, one in the tub spout, and they're all battery operated and remote. And they get billed every month for the water they use.
Yeah, that happens down here 95 West. Each unit has its own meter, so if they get excess, the tenants get billed for it.
But they have their own meter going into the apartment, correct?
Yeah,
This one here is a little device that goes, I mean, they get this big tub spout and there's a meter inside it
oh,
that they meter each fixture, and then on the toilet supply, there's a piece that goes in there. And
Interesting.
they're either plugged in or battery.
Very interesting, that's really,
I can't imagine what it costs to go through 985 apartments doing
but
that.
that was just, that was,
Replacing the battery.
But
Yeah.
I was in more than half of them. Yeah, get the battery contract for that place, right?
because that's newly bought, that was bought there not too long ago.
What's that?
Windsor Gardens, that was bought, someone
Oh,
bought
again,
that,
yeah, it's sold
Hey.
like,
216.
So this is something I
It's a
want to,
garden.
it's sold like at least 4 or 5 times since I've been down there.
Yeah, I think it's sold again lately, that's why they're
alright,
redoing
so
that.
going
many-
back to
how
the
many units?
use
900?
regulations,
What's that?
guys.
How many units did you say, 900?
About 985, I think,
Wow.
almost 1,000.
Oh, huh.
So back to the use regulations, because Ed, you brought up something that I guess I didn't expand this comment earlier from Carolyn. So with that requirement, accessory dwelling unit must be compatible with the architecture of a principal dwelling unit. Currently, the draft regulations prohibit the town from imposing design standards on an ADU that would not apply the dimensional to the principal dwelling. It's not clear whether requiring the ADU to be compatible with the architecture of a principal dwelling will be a permissible regulation of the ADU, particularly if there are no design standards applicable to the dimension to the principal house. Consider whether D is necessary or may be deleted. So if we don't have design standards for a single-family home, we
There's
really
not-
can't have design standards for an ADU.
Yeah, that makes sense
So
to me,
I think
actually.
this needs to be axed.
So there was something in there too, I just lost in my papers here now, but
Too many pages.
it was saying about the 900 square feet,
Yeah.
and that said it include like basements and this and that and everything else. So
Yeah.
if you had a basement and it's not livable, does that count to your 900?
So that was, because that was the thing, because every town has a gross, so it says 900 square feet of gross floor area. So every town is different in what they consider gross floor area. They're going with the state gross floor, and state gross floor is 900 square feet.
Right,
So if you put a basement down there, that's included.
so you'd want to put it on a
You
slab?
put it on a slab.
Right.
Yeah, or a little crawl space. If you do a crawl space, so again, that's where, if you're smart, I'm going to play the game with you. Basement levels are, finished basements or habitable basements are 6'8". I'm going to make a 6-foot basement. Not habitable, doesn't count. Someone my size can walk around the basement down there pretty easy. I don't need head height.
Yeah,
So you can play that, so, but it does say it's 900 square feet, so if you have a basement, that's counted towards it. So most of these will be built on slab, or have a
right.
3-foot crawl space just for the plumbing and stuff underneath. They just get access if they want.
No, we also talked about the height, so if you had a 2-car garage and you wanted, could you build the ADU above it?
Because again, it falls back on the reasonable restriction. If you say, again, when it's up against the property line, the 6 foot, as we're saying, what we have accessory structure, it says if you want to be within 6 feet of a property line, you have to be 100 feet back, not more than 22 by 24 square feet, and can't be more than 15 foot high. So you can't put an ADU on that, because now you're making a non-conforming building, you're making a legal use. But if I have a standalone 2-bay garage in the middle of my lot, I technically can go 35 feet high. That's allowed right now, so putting an ADU on top of a 2-bay garage that's allowed is allowed. That can be done, as long as you don't exceed the 35 foot high.
But it has to be 15 feet off the
It has to be the setbacks of the main house.
main house.
Yeah, whatever district you're in.
Well, it'd have to be more than 15 feet though, right? You'd have to be
Depends.
25 or 30 feet, well, depends what district.
What's
you're
this,
in.
yeah,
Unless
so,
you're, but if you go 100 feet back,
well, so that's for accessory structure.
accessory structure.
So-
But now that, okay.
But our accessory structure states you can't have living or sleeping in it. So if we were to put it, so again, that
So
thing
if
is,
you had a garage that was too close, 100, because it was 100 feet back.
and you were 6
you
feet to
could-
the side,
You could not put a.
ADU
an
in it or
ADU.
on it, because you violate our height restriction and our use restriction.
Right.
So the use for an ADU, you'd be putting a conforming use with a non-conforming structure, so it's a
Right.
violation of zoning, so
Right.
that's how we can keep, so you're not on top of somebody.
I have a question for you, Jim. So let's say you have a house,
Yep.
pre-existing non-conforming. Can they add an ADU?
Yes, so it all depends on which way they're gonna add it.
Right, if they don't increase the non-conformity, it's okay.
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
If you wanted to increase non-conformity, then you're going for a special permit, not for the ADU use,
Yeah.
but to put the building, to expand the non-conformity. So say if you were
Okay.
in rural, which needs to be 25 feet, and your house was at 20 feet,
Uh-huh.
you're going, I'm gonna put my ADU an extra 5-10 feet in,
Yeah.
because I want it, that's the only place I can put it.
Yeah,
You can't go for an expansion. You don't have to tell them it's an ADU, you can say it's an ADU, the ADU cannot be taken into an account.
Okay. all
Because
right.
if I-
Okay, good. I
Yeah.
thought I heard you say earlier that you can't do it.
No, you can't take something that's conforming to Phil's point.
Yeah.
If I have a 22 by 24 foot two-bay garage, not more than 15 foot
Yeah,
high,
yeah.
and I'm 6 feet, that's conforming.
Yeah, yeah.
If I
No,
put
I
an
mean
ADU
like earlier in
No.
the evening, I thought you said
No,
that.
if you have
so-
pre-existing
okay.
non-conformity, then you're
So it
you're
would be
protected.
treated the same,
Yeah,
like an addition?
yeah.
or
So to
whatever.
that point,
Okay.
You're saying you can convert the garage to the ADU, but you couldn't.
no,
put
you
the
can't
ADU
convert
above it.
garage because our accessory says if you're that close, you can't have any sleeping or cooking in it.
Okay.
So we can say we already have that. By saying you can't be in there, we're not creating. It's not an unreasonable restriction because we have that.
We're
That
not
was-
making it up just for the
Yeah.
ADU, it's in the bylaw.
Because for you to get that close to someone's property, you have to meet these criteria.
Yeah.
But if a lot is in a zone but it doesn't have the frontage,
You're still protected. It's like that statement I said, if you're wrong in Massachusetts,
yeah,
I'd rather have a wrong house than a right house.
yeah.
Because I have more protection and get away with murder if I have a non-conforming lot and a non-conforming house. You could be right beside me with a conforming lot and a conforming house.
Yeah.
I can do 10 times better with my non-conforming house than you can do with your legally 100% perfect house. So that's,
So, but would they need a special permit to do an ADU there if they don't have the frontage?
you know,
No,
No, because
No.
they're.
It's
as
already
long as
existing.
they're not
Yeah.
increasing the nonconformity.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
So you have
Yeah, they're already
a non-conforming,
non-conforming.
the house is already there, so you're
Yeah,
protected,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
gale,
yeah,
injury,
yeah.
there's multiple cases that protect you. So
Yeah.
for expansions, additions,
yeah,
you're good. So like,
yeah,
think of it this way, normally we're 25%. If you have a lot that's 10,000 square feet, you go 25% with a structure.
yeah,
But if you had a non-conforming house that was on 7,000 square foot lot, you're still only allowed to go 25% of the structure, you just have a smaller lot.
Yeah.
But you still go 25% on
Yeah.
board.
yeah,
This one's conforming, this one's not.
yeah,
So yeah, as long as there's a building there, you're good.
you could, yeah, I see.
In the case of the garage
Mhm.
standing not by the edge,
Mhm.
and you put an ADU on top, would you need two accesses? This is
Mhm.
building,
Yeah.
I suppose, but-
So building code, you'll have the two, you'll have a separation, a fire separation from the garage, being underneath to the building on top. And in Massachusetts, any living space has to have two egresses,
So you need two staircases?
two staircases out of the place, yeah. So building code says one, Massachusetts, we amended under 780 CMR. We amended, so a standard single family home, according to the building code, only needs one door, except for Massachusetts says no, you
Could
need
one of the
two.
staircases be internal into the garage?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm trying to take the language from the guidelines regarding site plan review. So, any requirements under site plan review concerning the protected use ADU that is more restrictive than those applied to the principal dwelling unit. That's considered in, sorry, let me back up. For the purposes of 760 CMR, yada yada, the following restrictions and regulations shall be considered unreasonable when applicable to the protected use. Any requirement under site plan review concerning the protected use ADU that is more restrictive than those those applied to the principal dwelling.
That would work if we took that word each
So,
and swapped
I
it
mean,
out.
is there a way to kind of tweak this? Any provisions on 13.6b shall apply to the site plan review for an ADU, except that the applicant should now be required to submit a list of waivers from the criteria of section 13.7. Submission requirements as to, I mean, we may not even have to even have the whole waiver
We could take the
element
whole
if you
lot
just
out.
said, all provisions of section 13.6b all provisions of section 13.6b shall apply to limited site plan review for an ADU. And then,
Put in-
period, submission requirements as determined by the bill inspector shall not be more restrictive than those applied to the principal dwelling.
That would work,
I'm good with that.
because then
Those that would be
Depends
applied to the principal
because then it
dwelling.
would depend on where you go, because that worked perfectly, because if you're a single family home,
Yeah.
the limited site plan would be based on a single family home. If you're trying to attach it to like a 10-unit building,
Yeah.
then the limited site plan would be based on a 10-unit building. I think that would work.
Well,
I'd
10
I'd
units.
The
Still
10-unit
like
building
that.
thing, no, it's back. The 10-unit building thing, we've gone over this, is not
Yeah.
a real thing.
It is, GR. If I have a standalone principal unit,
If you have a
Gotcha.
apartment building.
yeah. So that's the problem with the ADU
Do
and
we even
GR.
have that in the GR?
Yeah.
Alright.
We have one or two, but the good thing is our zoning and GR is, so most of the buildings we have, then GR don't have the land to add on one anyway.
it's an unrealistic scenario. Most ADUs are probably gonna be on a single-family home. I mean, you know,
But
I don't think so.
on
I've had
that, I
two
had,
people come in that have a 3-family house, wants to put one in the back of his lot.
Oh, jeez. Alright.
I have a question. Can you add an ADU to like an age-qualified
No.
village? No?
I think that's because,
That's
'Cause it's
overlay,
not
it's specialized
considered-
zoning, it's not
It's
considered
not considered
as of right.
single-family
as of
zone.
right. So it's where it's allowed as of right. Age qualified village is designed for multiple units
Right.
and has meet the criteria of our sections that
well, also
make
age
that.
qualified village, what district is that in?
It's
LM.
GR, it's in 4.
Business.
Yeah, it's in
Yeah,
4
so-
districts, so it's a
okay,
weird
so
mixture.
It's a weird
So it's not allowed as of right.
Yeah.
Because I can't get an age qualified village as of right.
Okay.
I have to go for a special permit for it.
But the regulations,
Any
Massachusetts say any place single-family is allowed
As
by,
right,
as of right, or special permit.
no.
Yes.
No special, if you go for the multiple with special permit, that's different.
No, I think, you can, it's, that's how the regulation is written.
Alright.
No, because if
Let
that's
me
the
find
case,
it.
then the business district, which would, you're allowed residential by special permit, would allow them in the business district,
Right.
which
Yes,
is not
which I-
allowed.
Yes, it is. I'll show it to
Alright,
you.
let's go to this again.
I'll show it to you.
Alright. Alright. No, we don't want to do that.
So single-family residential zoning district.
Any single-family zoning district, has nothing to do if it's special permit or by right, just the district itself. if
Just
it
hang on,
allows for
I'll show
single-family
it to you.
district.
I'll show it to you.
Alright, but just kind of for looking at the time, guys.
Yeah, so
This is fun.
if we could bring this to, I think we should bring this to some conclusion
Yes.
and.
No, so if that's,
If- if
honestly,
you're
I'm
Right,
thinking
okay,
with this is kind of, if Sarah, you're concerned here with this thing about
clear
having,
it up.
this is kind of defaulting back to, currently it's the draft regulation, so I don't want to kind of say this is set in stone, but in general, submission requirements as determined by the building inspector shall not be more restrictive than those applied to the principal dwelling. So principal dwelling is
For a
not going to
single-family
send you
home.
all this, you know,
You wouldn't
impact.
trigger any of that.
Yeah.
Okay, that works.
I think that works.
Yeah, I think that does work.
Yeah, I like the
That's
way you,
better than what it was.
yeah, I like the way you word it.
Yeah,
Alright.
and like you said, this is the draft, so.
Because that then too also, Sarah, protects the people applying, because I can't say, well, now I want this, and they're like, well, you need that for a single family home, and I'm like,
Right.
no, like,
Yeah.
well, then you can't have it.
Yeah.
So it gives them
Yeah.
protection
Yeah,
as
no, I think
well.
that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
So are we
One,
good?
one quick question.
Yes.
So, the applicant must notify the abutters.
Yes.
My
I'll
question is how? Like, is there a form? Or
I've already
they just send them a, hey, I'm building an ADU and not tell them any information?
No,
or-
so we're setting it up on our portal.
So there'll be
when
a
you
form.
apply for the permit for ADU,
Yeah.
it triggers the limited site plan.
Okay,
I've already talked to the assessors, and Marissa in the assessors is going to take it over on their side. I will put her on the permit.
okay,
It'll be sent to her. She will send back an abutters list to the owner and get sent out. And he just has to give us copies that it's done, so all the immediate abutters will be notified.
but notified with that exact form. I just wanna
Yeah.
know, is it gonna be standard what the abutters are notified of?
Yes,
Standard information?
send information.
So I can't write in crayon, hey, I'm building an ADU, and then mail it to my neighbor?
No, we're gonna have a flat letter
Okay, okay.
that everybody, that they will sign, send that I'm doing the ADU. And part of the verbiage we're looking at is that you can look online and go onto our portal. So
Mm-hmm.
if you say you're in ADU and I'm next door, I'm going, okay, I got my letter going, okay, I can't speak to it, but let me look at it.
Right.
Now you can go to the portal and pull up your plans, see what's coming and
Okay.
where the placement of it is on the lot as well.
Okay,
Then they'll send either hate mail
And it's
to
only
me.
the immediate butters, not like 300 feet.
No, it's the media butters, yeah, that's what we
Yeah.
agreed on.
Yeah.
was the
That's
media
written
butters.
there,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So there's a few things with this, and as that I'll get clarity from Carolyn. Nothing major, but just actually, what do I need to clarify with Carolyn on this one? I know the other one we have with split lots.
Split lots get clarified on the lot frontage, yeah.
This one, I think
I think it was just that.
it was just that, and while we're removing that one, I know to do that.
Yeah, that one.
Is notification overly restrictive?
Not really, so
We don't notify for limited site plan review, we only notify.
to a
for full
degree,
site
but
plan.
that's the whole point of what I think we came to an agreement was, the priority was notifying your immediate
No,
butters.
I agree, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
based upon the draft regulations, is that considered more, an unreasonable regulation?
It would be, on the only basis I'd say it's not, is the fact that ADU clarifications from that state say
Yeah.
you can apply for
Full site
a
plan.
full site plan review.
Yeah.
So by the fact we're doing a limited, we're less restricted, but the state says we can go for a full
Sure.
site plan.
And full site plan review, the way we have it.
On a
is
single family home
required.
is not allowed.
Hearing.
So
Yeah.
it's already, that, they're already giving us something is over restricted, but that's in there.
Yeah.
Plus, it's by right, so it's not discretionary,
Exactly.
so
But
that's the
like,
one thing.
if you really wanted to go to town on it, you could say, I want a full site plan, no ifs, ands or buts, and that's legal.
Yeah.
We're limited, so I think we all came to agreement because everybody wanted either way, and we came to an agreement, we'll do limited as long as the immediate butters are notified.
Yeah, no, I agree, I guess.
So I think that's how we can back it up.
Are you ready to hear the definition of single-family residential district from the regulations? Any zoning district where single-family residential dwellings are permitted on an allowable use, including any zoning district where single-family residential dwellings are allowed as of right, by special permit, variance, waiver, or other zoning relief or discretionary zoning approval.
What's that on?
This
Oh, so that's
is
the definition of,
760 CMR 7100, protected use accessory dwelling units. I'll be happy to send that to you.
Please do, because that's a change from what the Cent does.
so single family residential
It's right
zoning
there.
district.
There it is.
But that's, I don't think, I agree, but we don't have anywhere where we allow
Yeah,
single
no, so-
family by
Well, that's
special
why
permit.
I'm asking
They're all by
age
right.
qualified village.
No. So this is, so single residential zoning, so this is where a town, like a use variance. 99% of towns do not have use variances. Harwich is one of the few towns in the state that do have it.
Right.
So that would fall under something like that. Like we don't allow a single family home by variance does not exist in this town.
Okay, forget about the variance. I'm talking about
Special
special
permit.
permit.
Yeah, we don't allow single family homes by special
All
permit
right,
anywhere.
I
Is
got a
it-
good one for you, so.
Is it considered a single family district because
It's allowed in the
a
GR.
unit is allowed by special permit?
So,
A housing unit is allowed.
So the
well,
fall from CBD.
what if the adult qualified village is, you would have to be in the GR though, right? It'd have to
No.
be within a district that allows.
Allows.
No,
Oh, cause you're saying it's a
Special
special family?
family.
Like thinking, well, think of Bristol Brothers,
yes.
Yeah.
is that where we're kind of, cause that's.
I was just thinking about the use table.
Yeah.
And
At
that
that
we need
point, we
to
leave it up to
amend
their
it.
HOA to deal.
It has to be allowed in business because business is
Yeah.
allowed by
Yeah.
special permit. So we have to amend that. And then I thought about age qualified village. Does that count or not? And it seems from everything that you've said, a single family zoning district,
Business is in single family zoning district.
but you can have a single home by special permit.
No,
Yeah.
Yes, you can have residential above business.
Yeah,
So
but
that's,
that's not a single
That's
family.
not a single zoning
but
district.
you guys told me
No,
that
we
the definition.
figured this out. It's,
We figured, yeah,
No,
we were
it's-
saying this, we were looking at all options, and we were looking at, so what I was saying about CBD,
Yeah,
where residential is allowed as of right.
yeah,
Caroline came back going, yeah, except you need the business to get the residential.
yeah,
So if you don't have the business, you can't have the residential, so it's not allowed.
okay, so that's different
So
than what you
same with-
said earlier.
It's not a single family
Family.
home, it's a
Yeah.
mixed use building.
Mixed use building.
Right, but
It's,
So the
it doesn't
business
have to
district
be
is mixed-
single family home, they
No.
said single family
Zone
residential
district.
district.
Yeah. So it's CBD is not, it's a mixed use zone, so you could put one unit on top of a commercial, but if you don't have the commercial, you can't have the residential. So we talked to Caroline about this,
Yeah,
and she came back going, no, you need the commercial to get the residential, so it doesn't apply to ADUs. So same with the business district. The business district does allow the residential on top of business through a special permit, but you can't get there without having business on the first floor. So if you can't have business, that doesn't count. So, because I kind of have gone that way, that it might be allowed, we talked to Caroline,
yeah,
she came back going, no, if you can't have it as of right, or again, to your point, a special permit,
yeah,
single
That's
family
fine.
dwelling is only allowed by right,
Right.
no special permit, nothing else.
Because I
Only
need the
allowed by
business
right.
first.
Okay,
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what I thought it was
Yeah.
from the beginning, but then you said,
I had done the CBD because a few other commissioners have gone the same way.
okay,
Because your residential is allowed there as of right. So I said,
right,
does that, it opens up, and Caroline came back going, no, you can shut it down because you can't get to the residential without the business.
okay.
So it is allowed as of right, but
But
it's
what about
primary.
this, because any place,
Single-family dwellings, though.
Yeah.
So
And
a
this,
Still not,
single-family dwelling
it's
is
still
by
not a
definition.
single-family residential district.
yeah,
There's no
okay,
provision
we're a
for a special
single-family
permit.
residential
It is a
dwelling.
dwelling, not a district. So, and then again, on the business
All right,
side,
here's the definition of a single-family dwelling. A structure on a lot containing not more than one dwelling unit.
Okay,
so that's, and plus also again, even though you're allowed residential through a special permit, you can't get to the special permit without having the commercial first. So the
Okay.
commercial is the primary. That's what stops you.
okay. All right, that's fine.
Don't give me a heart attack this year, right?
Well, I was gonna say, for like Bristol Brothers, I feel like that's gonna get caught in the HOA,
Oh, yeah.
right? I mean, that's.
They don't even have enough room to swing a cat between the houses and that.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're good.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Glad.